Beneath the streets of America lie tunnels built for speed and convenience, but some are portals to the unknown. Dark, echoing, and often abandoned, these subway tunnels hide stories of tragedy, unrest, and lingering spirits. Passengers and workers alike have reported shadowy figures darting along the tracks, unexplained sounds of footsteps in empty tunnels, and lights that flicker without cause. Tonight, we descend into the darkness as we explore 25 of the most haunted subway tunnels in the United States, where the ghosts of the past refuse to remain underground. The City Hall subway tunnel in New York City is one of the city's most haunting and mysterious abandoned spaces. Closed to the public in 1945, the tunnel remains a relic of an earlier era of subway construction. Its vaulted ceilings, curved tilework, and intricate chandeliers frozen in time. Once bustling with passengers and the clatter of trains, the station now stands in silence. Yet it is far from empty. Witnesses and urban explorers report a range of paranormal phenomena: shadowy figures moving along the deserted platform, phantom voices echoing through the arches, and sudden cold drafts that cut through the tunnels like invisible hands. City Hall subway tunnel is a place where history lingers, and the energy of the past continues to imprint itself on anyone who dares to enter. Approaching the station from the tracks, the grandeur of the architecture is immediately evident. The vaulted ceilings rise elegantly overhead, adorned with ornate plasterwork and decorative chandeliers that once illuminated the bustling platform. The curved platform tiles, still meticulously patterned, gleam faintly in the occasional light from flashlights or distant train cars. Yet, despite its beauty, there is a weight in the air, a palpable sense of absence that somehow carries the memory of countless passengers, workers, and the rhythm of a city long ago. Even during the day, visitors often report feeling watched, as though unseen eyes linger in the shadows. At night, this feeling intensifies. The tunnels stretch into darkness, and the echoes of distant sounds seem amplified, carrying with them a sense of presence from another time. Shadowy figures are the most frequently reported phenomena in the abandoned tunnels. Many witnesses describe vague, dark forms moving along the platform or disappearing around corners. One urban explorer recounted standing at the far end of the curved platform when a shadowy figure appeared, pacing slowly as if waiting for a train that would never arrive. As he stepped closer, the figure dissipated into the darkness, leaving only the echo of his own footsteps in the silent space. Others have described fleeting figures standing near the old ticket booths, walking past the chandeliers, or peering out from alcoves where maintenance rooms once held equipment. These apparitions appear to replay the motions of a bygone era, reminding visitors that the tunnel was once a vibrant, living space. Phantom voices add to the tunnel's eerie atmosphere. Explorers frequently report hearing murmurs, snippets of conversation, or even the sounds of trains and announcements that no longer exist. One visitor described entering the platform and hearing the faint voice of a conductor calling out stops, followed by the echo of footsteps rushing along the tiled floor. Turning in every direction, he saw only empty arches and silent passageways. Other witnesses report hearing faint laughter, urgent whispers, or the indistinct chatter of passengers that seems to drift from one corner of the platform to another. The voices are often fragmented, disorienting, and sometimes seem to interact with those present, calling names or reacting to movement, leaving visitors unsure whether they are hearing memory or reality. Cold drafts frequently accompany these auditory and visual phenomena. Despite the tunnels being underground and enclosed, visitors often experience sudden drops in temperature, localized gusts of icy air, or the sensation of a presence passing nearby. One urban explorer described walking along the curved platform when an unexpected chill enveloped him, sending shivers down his spine. At the same time, he felt the unmistakable sensation of being watched, yet when he turned, the platform was empty. These cold spots often occur in areas where witnesses report seeing figures or hearing voices, suggesting that the energy of the past is concentrated in particular sections of the tunnel. The tunnels themselves seem to hold echoes of movement beyond the human. Doors, grates, and access points have been known to rattle or shift without explanation. Occasionally, objects like old signage, discarded debris, or maintenance tools appear to move slightly, as though nudged by unseen hands. One visitor described a metal railing vibrating softly along the edge of the platform, despite there being no train or wind to cause it. These subtle occurrences, while easily overlooked, add to the cumulative sense that the tunnel is not simply an abandoned space, but one imbued with lingering presence. Even the tunnel's connecting corridors and stairwells contribute to the haunting. Long, narrow passageways, lined with tile and exposed piping, amplify every sound. Footsteps echo unnaturally. Distant clatters reverberate like whispers. And the occasional drip of water punctuates the eerie silence. Explorers report sudden sensations of being followed, glimpses of movement in their peripheral vision, and moments where the air seems thick with an invisible energy pressing in from all directions. The structure of the tunnel itself, designed to carry the flow of passengers and trains, now carries the weight of memory and spectral presence instead. The haunting of City Hall subway tunnel is inseparable from its history. The station was once a vibrant hub, bustling with commuters and workers, a place of constant motion and energy. Today, those movements are frozen in time, yet they seem to replay in ghostly echoes. The shadowy figures, phantom voices, and sudden cold drafts are reminders that the station is more than just brick, tile, and steel. It is a vessel of memory, holding the energy of those who once moved through its halls, and replaying fragments of life that no longer exists. For anyone venturing into the abandoned City Hall subway tunnel, the experience is unforgettable. Shadowy figures drift along the curved platform, voices echo from corners. Cold drafts cut through empty corridors, and faint clatters or movements punctuate the silence. Every arched ceiling, every tiled wall, and every shadowed recess tells a story of a bygone era. And the lingering presence of those who once inhabited the station ensures that its haunting remains vivid and palpable. City Hall subway tunnel is more than a relic of New York City's transit history. It is a living archive of memory and energy, where the echoes of the past continue to be felt by anyone daring enough to enter. The Broadway subway tunnel in Los Angeles, California, is a forgotten remnant of the city's ambitious early transit projects. Constructed during the early 20th century, the tunnel was intended to connect the bustling streets of downtown Los Angeles with the growing urban transit system. However, its history is marred by tragedy. During construction, numerous accidents claimed the lives of workers, leaving behind a dark legacy that locals say still lingers in the tunnels. Though the subway was never completed for public use, the tunnel remains intact, its tracks silent, and its walls echoing with a past steeped in sorrow. Visitors and urban explorers frequently report eerie phenomena, ghostly cries reverberating through the darkness, shadowy apparitions that vanish into walls, and unexplained lights flickering along deserted tracks. The Broadway subway tunnel is a place where history and haunting intertwine, making it one of Los Angeles's most unsettling underground locations. Approaching the tunnel, the first impression is one of overwhelming darkness and isolation. The entrances are concealed by weathered concrete and overgrown foliage, giving the impression that the city above has abandoned this underground corridor entirely. Rusted steel beams and crumbling brickwork frame the entrance, evidence of decades of neglect. Even during daylight, the tunnel emits a heavy, oppressive aura, as though the air itself retains the memories of those who suffered within. Locals report hearing faint cries or the distant sound of footsteps near the tunnel entrances, even when no one is nearby. At night, the atmosphere becomes far more intense. Shadows stretch along the tracks, faint drafts whisper through ventilation shafts, and the faintest noises seem amplified in the enclosed, echoing space. Inside the Broadway subway tunnel, the haunting presence is immediate. The narrow passageway stretches for hundreds of feet, lined with unfinished brick walls and the skeletal remains of old support beams. Explorers report seeing ghostly figures moving along the tracks, often described as semi-transparent workers in period construction attire. These apparitions appear to replay moments from the past, lifting beams, shoveling debris, or pacing in quiet distress. One urban explorer recounted walking down the tunnel when a faint figure appeared just ahead, seemingly carrying tools. As he approached, the figure vanished, leaving only the faint echo of footsteps that never reached him. Others have reported similar experiences, seeing multiple forms, moving purposefully, before fading into the darkness. Ghostly cries are another hallmark of the tunnel's paranormal activity. Visitors frequently report hearing anguished shouts or soft moans reverberating through the tunnel, often coming from areas where no one is present. One explorer described standing near a collapsed section of track when a piercing cry echoed through the corridor, sounding as though someone was trapped or in immediate danger. The sound bounced off the walls, creating a disorienting and terrifying effect. Others have heard overlapping cries, muffled screams, or quiet sobs, making it feel as if the tunnel itself is replaying the accidents and tragedies that occurred during its construction. These sounds often appear randomly, heightening the sense of unpredictability and fear. Apparitions are commonly reported disappearing into walls or corners. Visitors describe seeing shadowy figures moving along the tunnel, only to vanish suddenly as if swallowed by the brickwork. One investigator reported watching a figure in a hard-at pause beside an old support beam, glance toward him, and then dissolve into the wall. Another explorer described turning a corner to find a figure standing silently at the end of the track, only for it to vanish the instant he blinked. These fleeting encounters leave witnesses with the chilling impression that the tunnel itself is alive with the memories of its past occupants, unable or unwilling to release them. Lights flickering along the tracks add another layer of unease. Although the tunnel has no operational electrical system, explorers often report seeing small bursts of light that illuminate sections of the track, sometimes following them as they walk. One visitor described a series of faint, flickering lights that danced along the ceiling, briefly revealing the silhouette of a figure crouched over a section of track before vanishing into darkness. Others report seeing glimmers of illumination that appear near collapsed sections of the tunnel or around areas where construction accidents occurred, suggesting a connection between the lights and the tragic history of the site. Cold drafts accompany these visual and auditory phenomena, cutting through the tunnel like invisible hands. Visitors frequently experience sudden drops in temperature, sometimes localized to specific areas or sections where apparitions or cries are reported. One explorer recalled walking along a section of track when an icy breeze enveloped him, causing goosebumps to rise along his arms. At the same time, he sensed a presence nearby, but when he turned, the space was empty. These cold spots often coincide with the areas where the tunnel's tragic history is most concentrated, amplifying the sense that the energy of the past still lingers within the walls. Even the structural remnants of the tunnel contribute to its haunting. Rusted rails, broken concrete, and scattered tools create an environment that feels frozen in time, yet infused with unseen life. Occasional sounds of shifting debris or falling dust are often interpreted as the echoes of those who once labored here. Every corner, alcove, and collapsed section seems to hold a story. And the cumulative effect of these elements is a sense of being immersed in both history and haunting simultaneously. The Broadway subway tunnel is more than a forgotten transit project. It is a vessel of memory and energy. The ghostly cries, apparitions disappearing into walls, flickering lights, and cold drafts are manifestations of the accidents, suffering, and labor that defined its construction. Visitors often leave with more than curiosity. They carry the weight of the tunnel's presence, a tangible reminder that history refuses to remain silent. For anyone venturing into the Broadway subway tunnel, the experience is unforgettable. Shadowy figures drift along the tracks. Ghostly cries echo through deserted corridors. Lights flicker unexpectedly, and cold drafts chill the air. Every beam, every arch, and every shadowed corner tells the story of lives lost, accidents endured, and memories preserved in brick and steel. The tunnel is more than an abandoned structure. It is a living archive of sorrow and lingering presence, ensuring that its haunting continues to be felt by anyone daring enough to enter. The Old Market Street Tunnel in San Francisco, California, is one of the city's most enigmatic and haunting underground spaces. Originally constructed in the early 20th century to accommodate streetcars and urban transit, the tunnel has long since been abandoned. Yet its presence continues to capture the imagination of hikers, urban explorers, and locals alike, stretching beneath the bustling streets above. The tunnel is a shadowed labyrinth of brick, concrete, and rusted metal, where time seems to have stopped and the echoes of the past linger in every corner. Those who venture into the tunnel report seeing shadowy figures moving in the mist, hearing footsteps on empty walkways, and even experiencing the sounds of phantom maintenance long after the machines have fallen silent. The old Market Street Tunnel is not just a relic of urban infrastructure. It is a space where history and haunting collide. Approaching the tunnel, one is immediately struck by its foreboding entrance. Dark, weathered brick frames the gateway, partially obscured by overgrown weeds and graffiti-covered walls. Even during daylight, the air carries a chill, as if the tunnel itself exhales a memory of the countless footsteps and labor that once filled its corridors. Local residents often speak of feeling an unexplained sense of unease when passing the entrance, and some claim to have glimpsed fleeting shadows through the fog that gathers along the walkways. At night, the atmosphere becomes even more oppressive. Mist seeps from cracks in the tunnel walls, winding along the floor and clinging to the low ceiling, while the faintest noises seem amplified in the echoing space. Shadowy figures are among the most commonly reported phenomena. Hikers and explorers frequently describe vague, dark shapes appearing in the mist, moving along the length of the tunnel, or vanishing suddenly into the fog. One visitor recounted walking through a section of the tunnel when a figure emerged ahead, seemingly pacing near a support beam. As he approached, the figure disappeared, as if swallowed by the fog itself, leaving only a cold, empty corridor behind. Others have seen multiple shapes drifting silently along the walls, sometimes appearing to observe before fading out of sight. These apparitions, often seen in peripheral vision, create a sense that the tunnel is still occupied by memories of those who once used it or worked within it. Footsteps echoing on empty walkways are another hallmark of the old Market Street Tunnel's haunting. Visitors frequently report hearing the sound of shoes scraping along the concrete floor, the soft thump of boots on worn wooden planks, or the distant clatter of equipment being moved. One urban explorer described standing in a long corridor when he heard the unmistakable sound of someone walking toward him. Each step echoed clearly, yet when he turned, there was no one in sight. These phantom footsteps often occur without pattern, sometimes following visitors along the length of the tunnel or stopping suddenly, leaving an unnerving silence in their wake. Phantom maintenance sounds also contribute to the tunnel's eerie reputation. Though the machinery that once ran here has long since rusted and been removed, explorers report hearing the clanking of tools, the rumble of unseen motors, and the distant scraping of maintenance carts along the rails. One visitor recalled walking past a series of rusted tracks when a low, metallic scraping filled the air, as though someone was repairing a section of track long since abandoned. These auditory illusions, whether caused by lingering energy or trick of the acoustics, add a hauntingly lifelike quality to the abandoned space. Mist and cold drafts further amplify the tunnel's unsettling presence. Explorers often experience sudden drops in temperature, accompanied by chills or the sensation of being closely observed. One hiker described entering a long stretch of the tunnel when the mist thickened unnaturally, curling around him and obscuring the path ahead. At the same time, a sharp draft swept through the corridor, sending shivers down his spine. Despite searching the surrounding area, he found no natural source for the cold, and the sensation of unseen eyes following him persisted as he moved. These environmental anomalies frequently coincide with sightings of shadowy figures or phantom sounds, reinforcing the idea that the tunnel is saturated with residual energy. Even the tunnel's structure itself contributes to its haunting. The vaulted brick ceilings, exposed pipes, rusted tracks, and aged support beams create an atmosphere that feels frozen in time. Every echo is amplified, every shadow seems alive, and every turn of the corridor can reveal glimpses of movement or light where none should exist. Explorers often note that the acoustics and architecture magnify every sound and shadow, making ordinary noises appear eerie and giving the tunnel a sense of life despite its abandonment. Visitors to the old Market Street tunnel often speak of a profound, almost disorienting sensation. The combination of shadowy figures, echoing footsteps, phantom maintenance sounds, and shifting mist makes it difficult to distinguish between reality and the impressions left by the building's long history. Some report feelings of being followed, of glimpsing fleeting faces in the fog, or of hearing faint whispers along the walls. Others describe a sense of timelessness, as though the tunnel exists in a space between the past and present, replaying fragments of life long after the human activity that created them has ceased. The haunting of the old Market Street tunnel is inseparable from its history. The shadows, sounds, and environmental anomalies are manifestations of the lives, labor, and memories that once filled the space. Visitors often leave with a sense of having walked through both a physical and spiritual archive, carrying with them the echoes of a forgotten past. Every mist-filled corridor, every shadowed corner, and every distant sound serves as a reminder that the tunnel is far from empty, preserving traces of human presence in ways that defy explanation. For those daring enough to explore the old Market Street tunnel, the experience is unforgettable. Shadowy figures drift silently in the mist. Footsteps echo along deserted walkways. Phantom maintenance sounds reverberate from the walls, and cold drafts chill the air. Each step into the tunnel is a step into history, into the lingering energy of those who once worked, walked, or lingered in its confines. The old Market Street tunnel is not simply an abandoned infrastructure project. It is a living repository of memory, presence, and spectral echoes, ensuring that its haunting will continue to be felt by anyone who ventures into its shadow depths. The Shamet subway tunnel in Boston, Massachusetts, is one of the city's most infamous abandoned transit passages, a relic of early urban infrastructure built under difficult and dangerous conditions. Constructed in the early 20th century, the tunnel was part of Boston's effort to modernize its subway system, but its history is stained by tragedy. Several workers lost their lives during construction, victims of accidents, cave-ins, and mechanical failures. Though the tunnel has long since fallen out of regular use, many who explore or pass nearby claim that the energy of those lost lives lingers in the shadows. Visitors consistently report ghostly whispers echoing through the passageways, unexplained shadows moving along the walls, and lights that flicker or glow without any electrical source. The Shamet subway tunnel has become more than an abandoned transit route. It is a site where history, tragedy, and the supernatural converge. Approaching the tunnel, one is immediately struck by its foreboding appearance. The entrance is dark and narrow, framed by worn concrete and rusting metal supports, with overgrown weeds and debris scattered nearby. Even from the street above, there is a sense of heaviness, as if the ground itself remembers the accidents and losses that occurred below. Locals report hearing faint echoes from inside the tunnel, even during quiet days, and some claim to have glimpsed vague shadows moving through the dimly lit interior. At night, the tunnel becomes a place of intensified unease. The narrow corridors seem to stretch endlessly, every sound amplified, and the dim glow from distant lights or cracks in the walls creates a constantly shifting landscape of shadows and reflections. Inside the tunnel, ghostly whispers are a common phenomenon. Visitors report hearing voices carried through the corridors, often indistinct but unmistakably human. Some describe the faint murmurs of workers coordinating their tasks long after the tunnel has fallen silent. Others hear urgent cries, fragments of warning, or muffled instructions, as though the spirits of the laborers are replaying the moments before their accidents. One explorer recounted standing near a rusted support beam when a soft voice whispered his name, followed by the sound of hurried footsteps racing past. When he turned, the tunnel was empty, yet the echo of that presence lingered in the concrete air. These whispers often drift unpredictably, following visitors or fading in and out, creating the sensation that the tunnel itself is alive with the memories of its past. Unexplained shadows contribute to the tunnel's eerie atmosphere. Visitors frequently report seeing vague, dark forms moving along the walls or disappearing around corners. One urban explorer described walking down a long stretch of the tunnel when a shadowy figure appeared at the far end, motionless, as if watching. As he advanced, the figure vanished into the wall, leaving only a faint chill in its wake. Others have seen multiple shadows gliding silently along the floor or hanging near old support beams, sometimes appearing to replicate the movements of construction workers long gone. These fleeting visions reinforce the feeling that the Shmoot Tunnel is haunted not only by memory, but by the lingering presence of those who once worked within it. Flickering lights are another unsettling feature. Though much of the tunnel's electrical system has long since decayed, visitors often report sudden bursts of light that illuminate sections of the walls or tracks. One explorer described passing a darkened corner when a soft, flickering glow revealed the silhouette of a worker leaning over tools, only for the image to vanish instantly. Other visitors have reported lights igniting in long sequences, appearing to follow them as they move, or blinking erratically near collapsed or weakened sections of the tunnel. These unexplained illuminations add a spectral quality to the abandoned space, suggesting that the tunnel itself is replaying moments from its past. Cold drafts often accompany the apparitions and sounds. Explorers frequently report sudden drops in temperature, localized to specific areas or spreading across the length of a corridor. One visitor described entering a particularly narrow section of the tunnel when an icy wind swept over him, bringing with it the distinct feeling of being observed. Despite turning to search, he found the corridor completely empty. These cold spots often appear in locations tied to construction accidents, reinforcing the idea that the tunnel retains the energy of the lives lost during its creation. Even structural elements of the tunnel seem to contribute to its haunting. Rusted rails, crumbling brickwork, and scattered debris amplify every sound and shadow, giving the space a sense of motion and life, despite the absence of human activity. Every footstep echoes unnaturally. Every drip of water becomes a potential signal of unseen presence, and every curve of the corridor creates shifting patterns of light and darkness that play tricks on the eyes. Explorers often remark on the way the tunnel seems to react to their presence, as though the building itself remembers their intrusion and responds with subtle manifestations of its haunted history. The haunting of the Shmoot subway tunnel is inseparable from its history. The whispers, shadows, and flickering lights are more than mere coincidences. They are echoes of the accidents, fear, and loss that occurred during the tunnel's construction. Visitors leave with more than a sense of curiosity. They carry a tangible awareness of the tunnel's lingering presence, the weight of those who died, and the energy they left behind. Every corner, every shadowed nook tells a story that refuses to be forgotten. For anyone venturing into the Shmoot subway tunnel, the experience is unforgettable. Ghostly whispers drift along the corridors. Unexplained shadows glide silently, and lights flicker in ways that defy explanation. Cold drafts chill the air, footsteps echo without source, and the very walls seem to pulse with the memory of past tragedies. The tunnel is not simply an abandoned transit route, it is a repository of human experience, suffering, and lingering presence, ensuring that its haunting will continue to be felt by anyone daring enough to enter its shadowed depths. The Michigan Avenue subway tunnel in Chicago, Illinois, is one of the city's most enigmatic and chilling abandoned transit corridors. Constructed in the early 20th century to accommodate expanding underground transportation, the tunnel has long been neglected, its tracks silent, and its walls lined with decades of dust, decay, and forgotten history. Despite its abandonment, the tunnel continues to capture the fascination of urban explorers, historians, and thrill-seekers, many of whom report unsettling experiences that suggest the tunnel is far from empty. Witnesses recount seeing apparitions drifting along the tracks, hearing phantom footsteps echoing in deserted corridors, and experiencing sudden, unexplainable bangs that reverberate through the tunnels. The Michigan Avenue subway tunnel is more than a disused piece of infrastructure. It is a haunting space where past tragedies and lingering energy seem to converge. Approaching the tunnel, the first impression is one of oppressive darkness and silence. The entrances are framed by crumbling concrete and rusting steel beams, with weeds and debris partially obscuring access points. Even during daylight, the tunnel emits a heavy, almost tangible presence, as though the air itself retains the weight of decades of human activity. Local residents often describe a sense of unease when passing near the entrance, with some reporting glimpses of fleeting shadows or the sensation of being watched from within. At night, the atmosphere grows even more intense. The narrow corridors stretch endlessly into darkness, every footstep and distant sound amplified, while the faint reflections of broken tiles and exposed beams create shifting patterns of light and shadow that seem almost alive. Apparitions are among the most frequently reported phenomena in the Michigan Avenue subway tunnel. Visitors describe vague, shadowy figures gliding along the tracks, often semi-transparent and eerily human in shape. Some appear to be workers from the tunnel's operational past, moving tools or pacing the platform as if completing unfinished tasks. One urban explorer recounted walking through a section of the tunnel when a figure appeared at the far end, silhouetted against a dim glow of distant lighting. As he drew closer, the figure seemed to dissolve into the darkness, leaving only the echo of footsteps behind. Others report seeing multiple apparitions moving silently, observing the tunnel or vanishing suddenly around corners. These visions often feel deliberate, as if the tunnel itself is replaying fragments of its history for anyone present. Phantom footsteps are another hallmark of the tunnel's haunting. Visitors often hear the sound of shoes striking concrete or the distant shuffle of boots on metal tracks, even when the tunnel is entirely empty. One explorer described standing in a long corridor when the unmistakable sound of hurried steps echoed toward him from the darkness. He turned quickly, expecting to see someone, but the corridor remained completely vacant. These footsteps often appear in irregular patterns, sometimes following visitors, sometimes receding suddenly, leaving an eerie silence in their wake. The unpredictability of the sounds amplifies the sense that the tunnel is alive with lingering presence, a conduit for the echoes of those who once walked its lengths. Unexplainable bangs and clatters further enhance the tunnel's eerie reputation. Visitors frequently report hearing loud, metallic sounds that reverberate through the corridors, often coming from areas with no visible source. One urban explorer recalled entering a narrow section of the tunnel when a sudden resounding bang echoed off the walls, startling him and sending dust falling from the ceiling. Despite checking the surrounding area, he found no debris or mechanical cause for the noise. Others describe repeated knocks, clatters of loose rails, or the sharp clang of unseen objects striking the walls, creating the impression that the tunnel itself is interacting with those who enter, replaying fragments of past events or accidents. Cold drafts often accompany these apparitions, footsteps, and noises, cutting through the tunnel like invisible fingers. Explorers consistently report sudden drops in temperature, localized to particular sections of the tunnel, which often coincide with sightings of apparitions or unexplained sounds. One visitor described walking along a section of track when an icy gust enveloped him, causing goosebumps and a deep sense of unease. At the same time, he sensed an unseen presence moving nearby, yet when he turned, the corridor was empty. These cold spots seemed to concentrate in areas tied to the tunnel's past, reinforcing the idea that the energy of those who once worked or passed through here continues to linger. Even the structural elements of the Michigan Avenue subway tunnel contribute to its haunting. Rusted rails, crumbling walls, and exposed support beams amplify every sound and shadow, making ordinary movements feel otherworldly. Dripping water, the faint hum of distant city noises, and shifting debris create an environment that feels simultaneously frozen in time and alive with residual energy. Every corner, arch, and alcove can reveal unexpected movement or faint light, further heightening the sense of unease. Explorers often remark on how the tunnel seems to respond to their presence, whether through shifting shadows, phantom sounds, or the subtle movement of dust and debris. The haunting of the Michigan Avenue subway tunnel is inseparable from its history. The apparitions, phantom footsteps, and sudden bangs are not merely coincidental. They are echoes of human activity, labor, and perhaps tragedy that occurred within the tunnel's walls. Visitors leave with more than a sense of curiosity. They carry with them the awareness that this abandoned space retains a presence, a weight of memory that persists long after the trains and workers have vanished. Every shadow, every echoed footstep, and every unexplained sound tells a story of a time that refuses to be forgotten. For anyone venturing into the Michigan Avenue subway tunnel, the experience is unforgettable. Apparitions glide silently along the tracks. Phantom footsteps echo through the corridors, and sudden, unexplained bangs resound in the empty space. Cold drafts chill the air, shadows shift unpredictably, and every corner seems to hum with the energy of the past. The tunnel is not simply an abandoned piece of infrastructure. It's a living archive of memory, presence, and lingering energy, ensuring that its haunting will continue to be felt by anyone daring enough to explore its shadowed depths. The King Street Tunnel in Seattle, Washington, is one of the city's most mysterious and haunting underground spaces, built to connect transportation lines beneath the bustling streets above. The tunnel has long since been abandoned, leaving behind dark corridors, rusted rails, and the faint echo of a time when trains and workers moved through its vaulted passageways. Despite its desolation, locals and urban explorers alike report unsettling experiences that suggest the tunnel is far from empty. Shadowy figures are said to disappear into walls. Cold drafts seem to follow visitors as they walk its length, and ghostly voices call out names in the darkness. King Street Tunnel is not simply an abandoned piece of infrastructure. It's a site where history, memory, and unexplained phenomena converge to create an environment charged with lingering presence. Approaching the tunnel, the first impression is one of oppressive stillness. The entrance, framed by concrete and corroded steel, is partially concealed by overgrown weeds and urban decay. Even during daylight, the air carries a chill, and some who pass by report a sense of being watched from within the shadows. At night, the atmosphere becomes almost unbearable. The darkness stretches endlessly, punctuated only by dim light filtering through cracks or reflections off damp surfaces. Every sound seems amplified: the drip of water, the shuffle of debris. Even the faintest echo of footsteps creates a tension that grips those daring enough to step inside. Shadowy figures are among the most commonly reported phenomena. Explorers frequently describe indistinct forms moving along the tunnel, their features obscured but unmistakably human in shape. One visitor recounted seeing a figure standing near an old support beam, motionless, as though observing him. As he stepped closer, the figure seemed to dissolve into the wall, leaving only a lingering chill. Others report fleeting glimpses of multiple forms, drifting along the tracks, or pausing briefly before vanishing entirely. These apparitions often feel deliberate, as if replaying the tunnel's past moments, leaving visitors with a disorienting sense that the space is still alive with unseen occupants. Phantom footsteps are another signature of the tunnel's haunting. Visitors often hear the sound of shoes striking the concrete floor, or the echo of boots moving along rusted rails, even when no one is present. One urban explorer described pausing in a narrow corridor when the unmistakable sound of hurried steps approached from behind. Turning quickly, he found the tunnel completely empty. At times, the footsteps follow visitors for long stretches, only to abruptly stop, leaving an unnatural silence in their wake. The unpredictable nature of these sounds adds to the tunnel's unsettling energy, reinforcing the sense that it retains the memory of those who once moved through it. Ghostly voices are also frequently reported. Explorers often describe hearing faint whispers or names called out from deep within the tunnel, sometimes seeming to come from multiple directions at once. One visitor described standing near a curved section of track when a distant voice called his name, soft and urgent, as if trying to get his attention. Spinning around, he saw only the empty corridor stretching into darkness. Others report hearing fragments of conversation, murmured instructions, or urgent warnings that echo and fade unpredictably. These These disembodied voices create a sense of presence and interaction, as though the tunnel itself is communicating with those who dare to enter. Cold drafts are another common phenomenon within King Street Tunnel. Visitors frequently report sudden, localized drops in temperature, sometimes so severe that they shiver despite heavy clothing. One explorer recounted walking along the tunnel when an icy breeze swept past, carrying the unmistakable sensation of an unseen presence nearby. Despite searching the surrounding area, no source could be found, and the feeling of being followed persisted for the remainder of the journey. These drafts often appear in conjunction with shadowy figures or ghostly voices, suggesting that the energy of past events has been imprinted upon the environment itself. Even the tunnel's physical structure contributes to the eerie atmosphere. Rusted rails, exposed beams, and peeling concrete create a labyrinthine environment that amplifies every sound and shadow. Drips of water echo unnaturally, loose debris shifts mysteriously, and reflections from puddles and wet surfaces distort the perception of movement. Every corner, arch, and alcove has the potential to reveal a fleeting shadow or a flicker of light, heightening the tension and reinforcing the impression that the tunnel is alive with residual energy. Explorers often remark that the space seems to respond to their presence, whether through subtle movements of dust, the sudden appearance of shadows, or the shifting echo of their own footsteps. The haunting of King Street Tunnel is inseparable from its history. The shadows, voices, and cold drafts are more than coincidence. They are echoes of human activity, memory, and perhaps tragedy, replayed through the environment. Visitors leave not just with a sense of curiosity, but with a tangible awareness of the tunnel's lingering presence. Each shadow, each echo, and each chill in the air carries with it the weight of the past, reminding explorers that the space is a repository of lives, labor, and unseen observers. For those venturing into King Street Tunnel, the experience is unforgettable. Shadowy figures drift along the tracks. Phantom footsteps echo through the corridors, and ghostly voices call names in the darkness. Cold drafts chill the air, shadows shift unpredictably, and every corner seems alive with the energy of those who once passed through. The tunnel is more than an abandoned transit passage. It is a living archive of memory, presence, and unexplained phenomena, ensuring that its haunting continues to be felt by anyone daring enough to explore its shadowed depths. The Jackson Street Tunnel in Portland, Oregon, is one of the city's most infamous and haunting subterranean structures. Originally built to connect Portland's burgeoning transit lines in the early 20th century, the tunnel was a marvel of engineering for its time. However, decades of neglect and disuse have transformed it into a site of eerie mystery, drawing urban explorers, historians, and thrill-seekers eager to witness its spectral phenomena. Visitors to the tunnel consistently report encounters that defy explanation. Phantom trains racing along abandoned tracks, lights that appear and vanish without source, and the unmistakable echoes of footsteps reverberating in the darkness. The Jackson Street Tunnel is more than a disused piece of infrastructure. It is a place where history and the supernatural converge, creating an environment steeped in tension, fear, and lingering energy. From the moment one approaches the entrance, the atmosphere is unnerving. Weathered concrete and rusted steel frame the access points, with graffiti and overgrown weeds partially obscuring the way inside. Even during the daytime, there is a tangible sense of isolation. The air feels thick, as if the tunnel itself retains the weight of countless footsteps and mechanical operations from a bygone era. Locals often report an inexplicable unease when passing near the tunnel, with some claiming to have glimpsed fleeting shadows or sensed presences watching from within. At night, the tension intensifies. Mist can gather along the floor, shadows stretch unnaturally along the walls, and the faintest sound, dripping water, distant traffic, or a shifting beam seems amplified, echoing endlessly along the abandoned tracks. Phantom trains are among the most startling phenomena reported in the Jackson Street Tunnel. Visitors describe hearing the rumble of engines, the screech of metal wheels against rails, and the faint hiss of brakes, even though the tunnel has long been devoid of any operational trains. One urban explorer recounted standing near a collapsed section of track when he heard a train approaching from the darkness. The sound grew louder, reverberating off the walls, yet no train appeared. The rumbling passed him, fading into silence, leaving only the echo of motion and the cold realization that something unseen had swept through the tunnel. Others report seeing faint, ghostly outlines of train cars moving along the tracks before dissolving into the darkness. A spectral replay of the tunnel's past activity. Lights appearing and vanishing are another hallmark of the tunnel's haunting. Despite the lack of electricity in many sections, explorers often report small bursts of illumination, sometimes moving along the tracks or flickering intermittently in corners. One visitor described a faint glow appearing along a distant platform, briefly revealing the silhouette of a figure standing beside the rails, only for the light to vanish entirely moments later. Others report seeing sequential flashes of light that follow their movements, creating the impression that unseen entities are moving through the space, reliving routines and labor from the tunnel's operational days. These apparitions of light, combined with shadows and echoes, give the tunnel a surreal, almost cinematic quality, where the boundary between reality and memory seems blurred. Echoes of footsteps are another persistent phenomenon. Visitors frequently hear the sound of shoes on concrete, the shuffle of boots along metal rails, or the faint scuffing of someone moving behind them, even when the tunnel is empty. One explorer recalled pausing in a long corridor when the sound of hurried steps approached from behind. Turning quickly, he found no one, yet the footsteps continued, fading gradually into the distance. Others report hearing overlapping footsteps, as if multiple presences are moving simultaneously, or the faint sound of someone pacing near a wall, only moments after they themselves have passed the same area. These phantom sounds create a sense of being followed, of unseen entities mirroring or replaying actions that occurred decades ago. Cold drafts often accompany these visual and auditory anomalies. Visitors describe sudden drops in temperature as they move deeper into the tunnel, sometimes localized to certain sections or corridors. One urban explorer recounted a frigid gust enveloping him while standing near a collapsed archway, causing goosebumps and a distinct sense of being observed. Despite turning and searching, he found no natural source for the cold, yet the sensation of an unseen presence persisted. These chills frequently coincide with sightings of phantom trains, flickering lights, or footsteps, amplifying the tunnel's haunting atmosphere and creating a visceral sense of unease. The tunnel's physical structure itself contributes to the haunting. Rusted rails, exposed support beams, cracked concrete, and patches of peeling paint create a labyrinthine environment that amplifies every sound and shadow. Drips of water echo unnaturally, loose debris shifts mysteriously, and reflections from puddles distort perception of movement. Every corner, alcove, and bend in the corridor seems capable of revealing fleeting shadows or faint glows, heightening the sense that the tunnel is alive with residual energy. Explorers often comment on how the environment seems to respond to their presence, whether through subtle echoes, shifting shadows, or the unpredictable flicker of light along the walls. The haunting of the Jackson Street Tunnel is inseparable from its history. Phantom trains, flickering lights, echoes of footsteps, and cold drafts are manifestations of human activity, memory, and perhaps tragedy imprinted upon the space. Visitors leave not just with curiosity but with a tangible sense of lingering presence. Each rumble, shadow, and whisper in the air carries the weight of the tunnel's past, a reminder that even abandoned infrastructure can retain the energy of those who once occupied it. For those venturing into the Jackson Street Tunnel, the experience is unforgettable. Phantom trains race along deserted tracks, lights flicker and vanish unpredictably, and echoes of footsteps resound in the darkness. Cold drafts chill the air, shadows shift across walls, and the sense of being watched is constant. The tunnel is more than an abandoned passage. It is a living archive of history, energy, and unexplained phenomena, ensuring that its haunting will continue to be felt by anyone daring enough to explore its shadowed depths. The Broad Street Subway Tunnel in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, is one of the city's most notorious underground passages, both for its historical significance and its unsettling reputation. Built during the early 20th century to support the growing demands of urban transit, the tunnel's construction was marred by tragedy. A partial collapse during its building claimed several lives, leaving a lingering mark on the site that locals claim has never fully dissipated. Since then, the tunnel has become a focal point for stories of paranormal activity. Visitors and urban explorers alike report shadowy figures of workers reappearing along the tracks. The echo of tools clanging in empty corridors, and strange glowing lights that seem to have no source. The Broad Street subway tunnel is more than an abandoned transportation route. It is a place where history and the supernatural collide in ways that continue to fascinate and terrify. From the moment one approaches the tunnel entrance, an uneasy atmosphere is palpable. Rusted steel and weathered concrete frame the access points, often partially concealed by graffiti, debris, and overgrown weeds. Even in daylight, the air feels heavy, charged with the weight of past tragedies. Locals frequently report a sense of being watched from the shadows, and some claim to have glimpsed fleeting silhouettes moving within the tunnel's depths. As darkness falls, the sensation intensifies. The long, narrow corridors stretch endlessly, with shadows cast by distant streetlights or the occasional flicker of malfunctioning bulbs. Every sound, from a dripping pipe to the scuff of a shoe, seems amplified, echoing unnaturally across the abandoned passageways. Shadowy workers are among the most frequently reported phenomena in the Broad Street Tunnel. Visitors describe indistinct, dark figures moving along the tracks, often pausing near old support beams or appearing to be engaged in tasks reminiscent of the tunnel's construction era. One urban explorer recounted seeing a figure kneeling near a collapsed section of wall, as though inspecting or repairing the damage. As he approached, the figure vanished completely, leaving no trace except a sudden drop in temperature. Others have reported multiple apparitions, moving silently through the misted corridors, sometimes appearing to observe explorers before dissolving into the darkness. These figures often seem tied to the tunnel's history, replaying moments frozen in time, a spectral reminder of lives lost during construction. Echoes of tools clanging are another hallmark of the tunnel's haunting. Visitors frequently hear the distinct sound of hammers striking metal, wrenches being dropped, or the scraping of construction carts along the rails, even though all machinery has long been removed. One explorer described walking through a side corridor when the unmistakable ringing of a hammer on steel reverberated from the far end. Startled, he looked around, but found only empty space and dust-covered debris. Others report overlapping sounds, as if multiple workers are performing their tasks simultaneously, yet no living person is present. These phantom noises create the unsettling impression that the tunnel is still active, haunted by echoes of labor long past. Strange glowing lights are another frequent phenomenon reported in the Broad Street Tunnel. Despite the lack of electricity in most areas, explorers often observe faint illuminations that appear and vanish unpredictably. Some describe small, hovering glows along the tracks, while others see streaks of light moving along walls or archways. One visitor recounted a glowing figure standing near a support beam, its outline barely visible, as if illuminated by an unseen lantern. The light flickered and disappeared in an instant, leaving only darkness and an eerie sense of presence. These inexplicable illuminations add an otherworldly quality to the abandoned space, blurring the line between history and haunting, reality and spectral replay. Cold drafts often accompany these apparitions, phantom sounds, and lights. Visitors describe sudden drops in temperature as they walk deeper into the tunnel, sometimes concentrated in specific areas where accidents occurred or debris remains. One explorer reported walking along the tracks when an icy breeze seemed to sweep past him, carrying the sensation of an unseen presence. Despite searching, there was no natural source for the chill, yet the feeling of being observed persisted. These cold spots often appear alongside sightings of figures or the sounds of clanging tools, reinforcing the notion that the tunnel is saturated with residual energy from the past. The physical structure of the Broad Street Tunnel itself amplifies its haunting qualities. Rusted rails, cracked concrete, and exposed beams create a labyrinthine environment where shadows and light play tricks on the eyes. Drips of water echo throughout the corridors, debris shifts unexpectedly, and reflections from puddles distort perception, making it difficult to distinguish between ordinary decay and supernatural activity. Every corner, arch, and niche has the potential to reveal a fleeting figure or an unexpected glow, heightening the sense that the tunnel is alive with lingering memory. Explorers often comment on the tunnel's responsiveness to their presence, with subtle sounds or movements coinciding with their passage, as if the past is replaying itself for anyone who dares to witness it. The haunting of the Broad Street subway tunnel is inseparable from its tragic construction history. Shadowy figures, clanging tools, and glowing lights are not mere coincidences. They are echoes of human activity and suffering imprinted upon the space. Visitors leave, not just with curiosity, but with the awareness of lingering presence, a tangible reminder of the lives and energy that remain trapped in the tunnel. Each shadow, each echo, and each mysterious light carries with it the weight of the past, ensuring that the memory of the tunnel's tragedies endures. For those who venture into the Broad Street subway tunnel, the experience is unforgettable. Shadowy workers reappear along abandoned tracks, phantom tools clang in empty corridors, and strange lights flicker and vanish without explanation. Cold drafts chill the air, echoes resound unnaturally, and the presence of the past is palpable. The tunnel is more than a forgotten piece of infrastructure. It is a living archive of memory, tragedy, and lingering energy, ensuring that its haunting will continue to be felt by anyone daring enough to enter its shadowed depths. The Monroe Street subway tunnel in Detroit, Michigan, is a shadowed relic of the city's once bustling transit system, constructed to link downtown stations and ease commuter traffic. The tunnel has long since fallen into disuse, leaving behind dark corridors, rusted rails, and a lingering sense of history frozen in time. Despite its abandonment, the Monroe Street Tunnel has earned a reputation among locals and urban explorers for phenomena that cannot be easily explained. Apparitions walking along the tracks, sudden cold spots near the walls, and phantom voices calling out the names of passengers are reported with unsettling consistency. For those who dare to enter, the tunnel is not just a disused subway passage. It is a place where the past persists in spectral form, a haunting echo of human presence, long gone. From the outside, the tunnel presents an imposing and forbidding facade. Weathered concrete, peeling paint, and rusted metal beams frame the entrance, partially hidden by overgrowth and litter. Even in daylight, a heavy stillness clings to the area, as though the very air carries the weight of decades of transit activity. Passers-by sometimes report a shiver of unease when walking nearby, accompanied by fleeting glimpses of movement within the darkness beyond the entrance. At night, the tunnel becomes far more oppressive. The narrow corridors stretch endlessly, with shadows cast by the occasional streetlight or faint reflection off damp surfaces, creating distorted, shifting patterns. Every small sound, the drip of water, the creak of loose metal, or the scuff of debris resonates unnaturally, giving the sensation that the tunnel is listening, or perhaps waiting. One of the most frequently reported phenomena is the appearance of shadowy figures walking along the tracks. Explorers and locals describe ghostly shapes moving silently, their outlines vaguely human. Some resemble passengers from the tunnel's operational days, gliding past old platforms or along rusted rails as if continuing a daily commute long after death. One visitor recounted seeing a figure emerge from the darkness at the far end of the tracks, pacing slowly as though lost in thought. As he stepped forward to investigate, the figure vanished, leaving only a cold draft in its place. Others report multiple apparitions appearing at once, moving in staggered, purposeful steps, sometimes watching from corners or vanishing suddenly as observers approach. These shadowy figures create a sense that the tunnel retains the lives of those who once used it, trapped in an endless spectral loop. Phantom voices are another hallmark of the Monroe Street Tunnel's haunting. Visitors frequently hear names being called, sometimes softly, sometimes with urgent insistence, echoing through the empty corridors. One urban explorer described walking along a side corridor when a faint, familiar voice whispered his name, as though someone were trying to reach him from the shadows. Spinning around, he found no one present, yet the voice persisted for several moments before fading entirely. Others report hearing fragments of conversation, laughter, or even cries for help, as though the tunnel itself is replaying long-forgotten interactions. These ghostly calls contribute to a feeling of being accompanied, yet simultaneously observed, intensifying the tunnel's eerie atmosphere. Cold spots often accompany the apparitions and phantom voices. Explorers frequently report sudden drops in temperature, sometimes localized to corners or along walls, and sometimes spreading along the tracks. One visitor recounted stepping near a curved section of the tunnel when an icy gust swept past him, carrying with it the sensation of an unseen presence. Despite turning and searching for a source, he found nothing. Yet the feeling of being followed lingered for the remainder of his journey. These chilling drafts are often associated with areas linked to past accidents or heavy foot traffic, as if the tunnel itself has stored the energy of human activity, replaying it in intermittent, spectral bursts. Even the tunnel's physical environment amplifies its haunting qualities. Rusted rails, broken beams, and cracked concrete create a labyrinthian setting where every sound and shadow is distorted. Water dripping from the ceiling echoes unnaturally, loose debris shifts with no apparent cause, and reflections from puddles along the floor make movement seem unpredictable. Every corner, alcove, and archway has the potential to reveal fleeting figures or sudden flashes of light, heightening the sense that the tunnel is alive with memory. Explorers often remark that the tunnel appears to react to their presence, whether through shifting shadows, sudden temperature drops, or the echo of footsteps that seem just out of reach. The haunting of Monroe Street Tunnel is inseparable from its history. The apparitions, phantom voices, and cold drafts are not mere coincidences. They are echoes of the human presence that once filled the corridor. Visitors leave with more than a sense of curiosity. They carry a tangible awareness that the tunnel is saturated with lingering energy, a reminder of the lives and stories trapped in its shadowed depths. Every shadow, every whispered name, and every icy gust of air serves as a reminder that the past refuses to remain silent. For anyone daring to explore the Monroe Street subway tunnel, the experience is unforgettable. Shadowy figures drift along the tracks, phantom voices call names through the darkness, and sudden cold spots chill the air. Every step echoes unnaturally. Every corner might conceal a fleeting apparition, and every wall seems to hum with memory. The tunnel is not simply an abandoned passage, it's a living archive of presence, history, and unexplained phenomena, ensuring that its haunting will continue to be felt by all who venture into its shadowed depths. The Canal Street Subway Tunnel in New Orleans, Louisiana, is one of the city's most notorious and unsettling subterranean structures. Originally constructed to support the bustling transit needs of the early 20th century, the tunnel has long since been abandoned, leaving behind dark, damp corridors, rusted tracks, and a lingering sense of history frozen in time. Over the decades, the tunnel has become the center of local lore, with residents and urban explorers alike reporting paranormal phenomena that defy explanation. Shadowy figures appear in the drifting mist, phantom footsteps echo through the empty corridors, and lights flicker without any visible source. The Canal Street Subway Tunnel is more than a forgotten transit passage. It's a haunting space where tragedy, memory, and lingering presence converge. From the moment one approaches the tunnel, an uneasy atmosphere is palpable. The entrance is framed by cracked concrete and rusted steel, partially obscured by overgrowth and accumulated debris. Even in daylight, the air carries a chill and a sense of foreboding, as if the tunnel itself remembers the countless footsteps that once traveled its length. Locals report a pervasive feeling of being watched when passing nearby, and some claim to have glimpsed fleeting shadows or shapes moving just beyond the entrance. As darkness descends, the tunnel's presence becomes even more oppressive. Long, narrow corridors stretch seemingly endlessly, and dim light reflecting off wet surfaces and cracked walls casts shifting, unnatural patterns. Every small noise, the drip of water, the shift of debris, or distant city sounds echoes unnaturally, amplifying the sense that the tunnel is alive with lingering energy. Shadowy figures are among the most frequently reported phenomena. Visitors describe vague, indistinct forms drifting through the mist, their outlines human but lacking solid detail. Many of these apparitions resemble past commuters or workers, moving along the abandoned tracks as though trapped in a perpetual routine. One urban explorer recounted walking through a side corridor when he saw a dark figure pacing slowly along the rails. As he stepped closer, the figure dissipated into the mist, leaving only a sudden cold draft in its wake. Others describe multiple shadowy forms appearing simultaneously, sometimes standing silently at the edges of platforms or vanishing abruptly when approached. These figures seem connected to the tunnel's tragic history, as if the events and accidents that occurred here have left their mark in spectral form. Phantom footsteps are another hallmark of the Canal Street Tunnel's haunting. Explorers frequently hear the unmistakable sound of shoes striking concrete, the shuffle of boots, or the scraping of debris along the rails, even when the tunnel is completely empty. One visitor described pausing in a long, narrow corridor when the sound of hurried steps approached from behind. Turning quickly, he found nothing, yet the footsteps continued, fading gradually into silence. Others report overlapping footsteps, as if multiple entities are moving simultaneously, creating a disorienting effect that leaves visitors questioning the reality of what they hear. These echoes of movement contribute to a feeling of being followed, as if the tunnel itself is replaying moments from its past. Flickering lights are another common phenomenon. Despite the absence of electricity in much of the tunnel, explorers often report sudden bursts of illumination, sometimes flickering in a pattern or appearing in distant corners. One urban explorer described a faint, wavering glow along a platform, illuminating the silhouette of a figure standing near the tracks before vanishing completely. Others report sequences of light that seem to move along the tunnel, as if guided by unseen hands, revealing fragments of shadowy figures or old structural features before disappearing into darkness. These inexplicable illuminations create a surreal, almost cinematic effect, making the abandoned tunnel feel alive with history and lingering energy. Cold drafts often accompany these visual and auditory phenomena. Visitors report sudden drops in temperature, sometimes concentrated in specific corners or near old platforms. One explorer recalled walking along the tracks when an icy gust swept through the corridor, carrying with it the sensation of an unseen presence. Despite searching, no natural source for the chill could be found, yet the feeling of being watched remained. These cold spots often coincide with sightings of shadowy figures or flickering lights, reinforcing the impression that the tunnel retains the energy of past accidents and human activity. The tunnel structure itself amplifies its haunting qualities. Rusted rails, exposed beams, cracked walls, and water-stained concrete create a labyrinthine environment where shadows and echoes distort perception. Drips of water resonate like distant footsteps. Debris shifts without explanation, and reflections from puddles along the floor make movement seem unpredictable. Every corner, alcove, and archway holds the potential to reveal a fleeting figure or a sudden glow, heightening the sense that the tunnel is alive with residual memory. Explorers often remark that the space seems to respond to their presence, whether through shifting shadows, strange echoes, or sudden illuminations. The haunting of the Canal Street subway tunnel is inseparable from its history. Shadowy figures, phantom footsteps, flickering lights, and cold drafts are not merely coincidences. They are echoes of human presence and tragedy that remain imprinted on the space. Visitors leave not just with curiosity, but with a tangible sense of lingering energy, a reminder of lives and events that cannot be forgotten. Each shadow, each whisper, each flicker of light carries with it the weight of the tunnel's past, ensuring that its story continues to be felt by anyone who ventures into its depths. For those daring enough to explore the Canal Street subway tunnel, the experience is unforgettable. Shadowy figures drift through the mist. Phantom footsteps echo across empty corridors, and lights flicker unpredictably. Cold drafts chill the air. Shadows shift along the walls, and the presence of the past is palpable. The tunnel is more than an abandoned passage. It is a living archive of tragedy, memory, and unexplained phenomena, guaranteeing that its haunting will continue to be experienced by all who enter its shadowed depths. The Pine Street Subway Tunnel in San Diego, California, is a forgotten remnant of the city's early transit system. A subterranean passage that stretches beneath the streets like a hidden artery of the past. Built decades ago to accommodate growing urban traffic, the tunnel has long been abandoned, leaving behind rusted tracks, cracked concrete walls, and the faint echo of a time when trains and passengers passed through regularly. Despite years of neglect, the tunnel has developed a reputation among urban explorers, locals, and paranormal enthusiasts as a place where the boundaries between the living and the spectral seem to blur. Visitors frequently report unsettling phenomena, ghostly apparitions along platforms, mysterious bangs reverberating through the tunnels, and sudden cold drafts in corridors that have not seen activity in decades. The Pine Street Subway Tunnel is more than a derelict transportation route. It is a haunting space where history, tragedy, and the unknown converge. Even approaching the tunnel conveys a sense of unease. The entrance is framed by weathered concrete, rusted steel beams, and layers of peeling paint. Graffiti, weeds, and scattered debris partially obscure access, giving the area an abandoned and forgotten appearance. Even in daylight, there is an oppressive stillness that seems to cling to the tunnel's mouth. Locals often report a strange sensation of being observed when passing by, with some claiming fleeting glimpses of movement in the darkness beyond the entrance. As night falls, the oppressive atmosphere intensifies. Shadows stretch unnaturally along the walls. Faint reflections off damp surfaces create shifting shapes, and the slightest sounds, the drip of water, the creak of metal, or the rustle of debris go through the corridors in ways that unsettle even the most fearless explorers. Apparitions are among the most frequently reported phenomena in the Pine Street Tunnel. Visitors describe shadowy figures moving along platforms or disappearing around corners. Their outlines vaguely human but lacking detail. Many of these figures seem to replay the activities of a bygone era, walking as though still waiting for trains or performing tasks long forgotten. One urban explorer recalled seeing a figure standing near an old support beam, gazing down the tracks as if observing someone approaching. As he stepped closer, the figure vanished into the shadows, leaving only a cold sensation in its place. Others report multiple apparitions appearing simultaneously, drifting along the rails, pausing near abandoned platforms, or simply watching silently before disappearing. These ghostly forms give the tunnel a chilling sense of life, as if the energy of the past is replaying in real time. Mysterious bangs and clanging noises are another hallmark of the Pine Street Tunnel's haunting. Explorers often hear the sound of metal striking metal, distant thuds, or the echo of objects falling, even though the tunnel has long been devoid of equipment and trains. One visitor described walking through a side corridor when a series of sharp, metallic bangs resonated through the space, echoing from every direction. Despite searching, there was no source, and the echoes faded gradually, leaving only silence and a lingering tension. Others report hearing overlapping sounds as if multiple events are occurring at once, creating a disorienting effect and giving the impression that the tunnel is still active in ways invisible to the living. Cold drafts are another persistent feature. Visitors report sudden drops in temperature, sometimes localized to corners, stairwells, or areas near platforms. One explorer recounted feeling a chilling breeze sweep along the tracks, brushing past him with a sensation of unseen presence. Despite examining the surroundings, there was no explanation for the sudden cold. Yet the awareness of being watched persisted. These drafts often appear alongside sightings of apparitions or the echoing bangs, reinforcing the impression that the tunnel retains the energy and memories of those who once moved through it. The tunnel's physical environment amplifies its haunting qualities. Rusted rails, Broken beams, cracked concrete, and peeling walls create a labyrinthine space where shadows and light interact unpredictably. Water dripping from the ceiling resonates like footsteps. Debris shifts without cause, and reflections in puddles distort perceptions, making it difficult to discern what is real and what is spectral. Every corner, archway, and alcove has the potential to reveal fleeting figures or sudden flashes of light, heightening the sense that the tunnel is alive with residual energy. Explorers often note that the tunnel seems to respond to their presence, whether through shifting shadows, sudden noises, or inexplicable drafts, as though the space itself is aware of those who dare to enter. The haunting of the Pine Street subway tunnel is inseparable from its history. Apparitions, phantom sounds, and chilling drafts are not coincidental. They are echoes of human activity, memory, and perhaps tragedy, preserved in the tunnel's walls and floors. Visitors leave with more than curiosity. They carry a tangible awareness of lingering presence. Every shadow, every mysterious bang, and every sudden cold spot serves as a reminder of the people and events that the tunnel witnessed long before it fell into disuse. For those who venture into the Pine Street subway tunnel, the experience is unforgettable. Ghostly figures drift along abandoned platforms, mysterious bangs reverberate through dark corridors, and cold drafts chill the air unexpectedly. Shadows shift and dance across walls, sounds echo unnaturally, and the presence of the past feels tangible. The tunnel is more than an abandoned passageway. It is a living archive of memory, energy, and unexplained phenomena, ensuring that its haunting continues to be felt by anyone daring enough to explore its shadowed depths. The Water Street subway tunnel in Baltimore, Maryland, is one of the city's most enigmatic and unsettling underground spaces. Originally constructed to support Baltimore's early transit system, the tunnel has long been abandoned, leaving behind rusted tracks, crumbling concrete, and a lingering sense of the lives that once passed through its depths. Over the years, it has gained a reputation among locals, urban explorers, and paranormal enthusiasts as a place where strange occurrences are not uncommon. Ghostly figures are said to walk along the abandoned sections of the tunnel. Phantom voices echo through empty corridors, and lights flicker mysteriously along the tracks. The Water Street subway tunnel is more than a forgotten transit route. It is a subterranean repository of memory, energy, and unexplained phenomena. From the moment one approaches the entrance, there is a tangible feeling of unease. The tunnel's mouth is framed by decaying concrete, rusted metal beams, and peeling paint, partially hidden by weeds, debris, and graffiti. Even during the daytime, the air is thick and heavy, carrying a sense of silence that seems almost unnatural. Locals frequently report feeling observed when passing by the tunnel, and some claim to have caught fleeting glimpses of movement within its shadowed depths. After sunset, the sense of foreboding intensifies. The long, narrow corridors stretch endlessly into darkness, and the interplay of shadows and reflections from damp surfaces makes it difficult to gauge distance or depth. Every small sound, the drip of water, the scrape of loose debris, or the distant hum of the city above echoes unnaturally, reinforcing the impression that the tunnel is alive with residual energy. One of the most commonly reported phenomena is the presence of ghostly figures walking along the abandoned tracks. Explorers describe vague human shapes drifting through the shadows, sometimes pacing along the rails or standing silently near old platforms. Many of these apparitions appear to be connected to the tunnel's operational past, moving as though following routines long since ended. One urban explorer recounted stepping into a side corridor and seeing a shadowy figure walking slowly along the tracks. As he approached, the figure seemed to pause and turn toward him, then vanished completely into the darkness. Others report seeing multiple figures simultaneously, gliding silently along the tracks, pausing near walls, or vanishing into empty air. These encounters leave an unsettling impression that the tunnel continues to echo with the presence of those who once used it. Phantom voices are another hallmark of the Water Street Tunnel's haunting. Visitors frequently report hearing names called, fragments of conversation, or soft murmurs that seem to emanate from nowhere. One explorer described walking along a long corridor when a clear whisper echoed his name from the shadows. Spinning around, he found no one present, yet the voice lingered for several moments, fading gradually into silence. Others report hearing the overlapping chatter of people long gone, laughter, or cries of distress, creating the impression that the tunnel is a vessel for the voices of its past. These ghostly sounds often appear in areas where shadows are most pronounced, heightening the sense of disorientation and suspense. Lights flickering along the tracks are another common phenomenon. Despite the absence of electricity in many sections, explorers often see brief illuminations along platforms or walls. One visitor described a faint, wavering glow along a distant platform that briefly revealed the silhouette of a figure standing by the tracks, only for the light to vanish completely moments later. Others report sequential flickers that move along the length of the tunnel, casting momentary shadows that suggest unseen presences. These unpredictable bursts of light add a surreal, almost cinematic quality to the tunnel, making it difficult for visitors to distinguish between what is real and what is spectral. Cold drafts often accompany the apparitions, voices, and flickering lights. Visitors report sudden drops in temperature, sometimes concentrated near walls, stairwells, or platform edges. One explorer recalled standing near a corner when an icy gust swept past him, carrying the sense of an unseen presence. Despite careful inspection, there was no natural explanation for the cold. Yet the feeling of being watched or followed remained. These drafts often coincide with other reported phenomena, reinforcing the idea that the tunnel retains some echo of the energy and activity of its past inhabitants. The physical structure of the Water Street Tunnel contributes heavily to its haunting atmosphere. Rusted rails, broken beams, cracked concrete, and peeling paint create a labyrinthian environment in which shadows, echoes, and reflections distort perception. Drips of water resonate like footsteps, loose debris shifts unexpectedly, and puddles on the floor create reflections that confuse depth and distance. Every arch, alcove, and corner holds the potential to reveal a fleeting figure or sudden glow, enhancing the feeling that the tunnel is alive with residual memory. Explorers often note that the tunnel seems to respond to their presence, with shifting shadows, sudden noises, or unexpected lights reacting to their movements as though aware of the living intruding into its depths. The haunting of the Water Street subway tunnel is inseparable from its history. Ghostly figures, phantom voices, flickering lights, and cold drafts are not mere coincidences. They are echoes of human presence, activity, and tragedy that remain imprinted in the space. Visitors leave with more than curiosity. They carry a tangible awareness of lingering presence. Every shadow, every mysterious sound, and every flicker of light serves as a reminder of the lives and stories that the tunnel witnessed long ago. For those who venture into the Water Street subway tunnel, the experience is unforgettable. Ghostly figures drift along abandoned platforms, phantom voices call from the shadows, and lights flicker unpredictably along the tracks. Cold drafts chill the air, shadows shift along walls, and the past seems to pulse faintly in every corner. The tunnel is not simply an abandoned passage. It is a living archive of memory, energy, and unexplained phenomena, ensuring that its haunting will continue to be felt by anyone brave enough to explore its shadowed depths. The State Street subway tunnel in Chicago, Illinois, is an abandoned and eerie relic of the city's ambitious early 20th century transit system. Originally built to ease the flow of commuters through the bustling downtown district, the tunnel quickly became infamous due to the numerous accidents and tragedies that occurred during its construction. Workers lost their lives to falls, cave-ins, and machinery mishaps, and over the decades, the tunnel has developed a reputation as one of the city's most haunted subterranean spaces. Today, visitors and urban explorers report seeing shadowy figures on the tracks, strange lights moving along the walls, and hearing echoes of screams that seem to have no origin. The State Street subway tunnel is more than a decaying tunnel. It is a place where history, tragedy, and lingering spirits converge in a hauntingly vivid way. Approaching the tunnel, the atmosphere is immediately oppressive. The entrance, framed by aged concrete and rusted steel supports, is partially hidden by weeds, debris, and urban detritus. Even in broad daylight, the air seems heavy, charged with a sense of anticipation and unease. Locals report feeling watched when walking past the entrance, with some claiming to have glimpsed fleeting shadows in the darkness beyond. At night, the tunnel takes on an even more forbidding quality. Long corridors stretch into blackness, with dim light reflecting off damp walls, casting strange, shifting patterns. Every noise, the drip of water from overhead pipes, the rustle of debris, or distant traffic, above echoes with an unnatural resonance, making the space feel alive with unseen activity. Shadowy figures are among the most frequently reported phenomena within the State Street Tunnel. Visitors describe vague, human-like forms drifting along the tracks or standing at the edges of platforms, often disappearing as observers draw near. Many of these apparitions seem to replay the lives of workers lost during the tunnel's construction, moving as though engaged in forgotten tasks. One urban explorer recalled walking down a side passage when he saw a figure kneeling near a broken support beam, seemingly inspecting the rail. As he approached, the figure dissolved into the shadows, leaving only a sudden, icy chill in its place. Others report seeing multiple figures at once, pacing silently along the tracks, standing at corners, or vanishing entirely as they attempt to watch them. These encounters suggest that the tunnel retains the energy of its tragic past, preserving the memories of lives cut short. Strange lights are another common phenomenon reported in the tunnel. Despite the lack of functioning electricity in most sections, visitors frequently witness brief illuminations that appear and vanish unpredictably. These lights are often described as hovering along walls or gliding above the tracks, casting flickering shadows that sometimes reveal the outlines of spectral figures. One visitor recounted a faint, moving glow that revealed the silhouette of a figure carrying a tool, disappearing just as quickly as it appeared. Others report sequences of flickering lights that seem to travel along the walls, creating an unsettling, almost cinematic effect that blurs the line between reality and hallucination. Echoes of screams are among the most chilling phenomena reported. Explorers often hear anguished cries reverberating through empty corridors, sometimes accompanied by the sound of metal clanging or footsteps on the tracks. One visitor described standing on a platform when a loud, hyped scream echoed from deep within the tunnel. He turned to investigate, but no one was there. The scream seemed to emanate from the walls themselves, lingering in the corridors before fading into silence. Others report overlapping screams, as though multiple incidents are replaying simultaneously, creating a horrifying soundscape that mirrors the tunnel's tragic construction history. Cold drafts often accompany these apparitions, lights, and sounds. Visitors report sudden drops in temperature as they walk through the tunnel, often near corners, stairwells, or collapsed sections. One explorer recalled moving along the tracks when an icy gust swept past him, carrying with it the sensation of an unseen presence brushing against him. Despite inspecting the area, no natural source for the cold could be found. These chilling gusts are frequently associated with sightings of figures or strange lights, reinforcing the sense that the tunnel is saturated with residual energy from the past. The physical structure of the State Street Tunnel contributes to its haunting atmosphere. Rusted rails, broken beams, cracked concrete, and peeling walls create a labyrinthian environment where shadows and sound distort perception. Water dripping from the ceiling resonates like distant footsteps. Debris shifts inexplicably, and reflections in puddles make movement seem unpredictable. Every arch, alcove, and corner has the potential to reveal a fleeting figure or sudden flicker of light, amplifying the tunnel's unnerving qualities. Explorers often remark that the space appears to react to their presence, with noises, lights, or shadows manifesting in response to their movement. The haunting of the State Street subway tunnel is inseparable from its construction history. Shadowy figures, moving lights, echoes of screams, and cold drafts are not coincidences. They are the lingering echoes of human activity and tragedy, imprinted on the space. Visitors leave not merely with curiosity, but with a profound awareness of lingering presence. Each shadow, each flicker of light, and each spectral cry is a reminder of the lives and accidents that left a permanent mark on the tunnel. For those who venture into the State Street subway tunnel, the experience is unforgettable. Shadowy figures drift along the tracks, strange lights flicker unpredictably, and anguished screams echo through empty corridors. Cold drafts chill the air, shadows shift unnaturally, and the sense of the past's lingering presence is palpable. The tunnel is not simply an abandoned passage, it is a living archive of memory, tragedy, and unexplained phenomena, ensuring that its haunting will continue to be experienced by anyone brave enough to explore its shadowed depths. The Market Street subway tunnel in San Francisco, California, is a subterranean corridor steeped in history and mystery, constructed in the early 20th century to serve the city's bustling transit system. The tunnel has long since fallen into partial disuse, leaving behind empty tracks, dimly lit platforms, and the faint echoes of a time when trains and commuters filled its passages. Over the decades, the tunnel has developed a reputation among urban explorers, locals, and paranormal enthusiasts as a place where the ordinary laws of reality seem to bend. Witnesses recount seeing apparitions walking along platforms, phantom trains running with no passengers, and unexplained whispers that seem to emanate from nowhere. The Market Street subway tunnel is not merely an abandoned transit route. It is a place where memory, history, and lingering presence converge to create a haunting experience that cannot be ignored. From the moment one approaches the entrance, the atmosphere is heavy with unease. The tunnel's mouth is framed by aged concrete, rusted steel beams, and peeling paint, partially obscured by graffiti and debris. Even during the day, the air feels charged, thick with a sense of anticipation and apprehension. Locals report a strange sensation of being observed when walking nearby, with fleeting shadows sometimes glimpsed in the corners of their vision. As night falls, the tunnel's oppressive character intensifies. Long corridors stretch into darkness. Damp surfaces reflect faint light in unnatural patterns, and every sound, the drip of water, the scrape of loose metal, or the distant rumble of city life above echoes through the space with a strange resonance, heightening the sense that the tunnel is alive with unseen activity. Apparitions are among the most frequently reported phenomena. Visitors describe vague, human-like forms walking along the platforms, sometimes pacing, sometimes standing silently as if waiting for a train that will never arrive. Many of these figures appear to replay the actions of commuters from decades past, walking with purpose but fading into shadows as observers approach. One urban explorer recounted seeing a figure standing near an abandoned platform, gazing down the tracks as though anticipating an incoming train. When he stepped closer, the figure vanished entirely, leaving only a lingering chill in its wake. Others report multiple apparitions moving simultaneously, gliding along tracks or disappearing into walls, creating the impression that the tunnel preserves the routines and energy of its former inhabitants. Phantom trains are another hallmark of the Market Street tunnel's haunting. Witnesses frequently report seeing the vague outline of a train moving along the tracks, accompanied by the sound of wheels clattering against rails. Yet, when investigated, the tracks are empty and no such train exists. One visitor described hearing the approach of a train, feeling the vibration beneath his feet, and seeing lights flicker along the platform as if the train were real, but when he looked, the tunnel was completely deserted. Others report ghostly trains passing silently, their interiors filled with indistinct shadows of passengers who vanish when observed directly. These spectral trains reinforce the sense that the tunnel remains a place where time and presence are suspended, replaying moments of activity from its past. Unexplained whispers often accompany these visual phenomena. Explorers report hearing voices calling names, fragments of conversation, or quiet murmurs echoing through the corridors. One urban explorer described pausing on a platform when a soft, indistinct whisper seemed to emanate from the walls, repeating his name. Spinning around, he found nothing, yet the whisper lingered, fading slowly. Others recount hearing overlapping murmurs, as though the tunnel itself is replaying conversations from decades ago, the voices coming from nowhere and everywhere simultaneously. These whispers add a psychological intensity to the tunnel's haunting, creating an almost tangible presence of the past. Cold drafts and sudden shifts in temperature are often reported alongside these apparitions and sounds. Visitors describe feeling icy gusts that seem to follow them along the tracks or brush past walls with no discernible source. One explorer recounted walking along the corridor when a sudden chill swept over him, carrying the sense of an unseen presence. Despite searching for ventilation or natural causes, nothing could account for the drop in temperature. These drafts frequently coincide with sightings of apparitions or phantom trains, suggesting a link between the tunnel's residual energy and the experiences of those who enter. The tunnel's architecture amplifies its haunting atmosphere. Cracked walls, rusted rails, and peeling paint create a labyrinthine environment where shadows, echoes, and reflections distort perception. Drips of water from the ceiling echo like footsteps. Loose debris shifts unpredictably, and reflections in puddles make movements seem fluid and uncertain. Every corner, archway, and alcove has the potential to reveal a fleeting figure, a passing glow, or a whisper of sound, making it impossible to fully discern what is real and what is spectral. Explorers often note that the tunnel seems to respond to their presence, with lights flickering, shadows moving, or whispers appearing in tandem with their movements. The haunting of the Market Street subway tunnel is inseparable from its history. Apparitions, phantom trains, whispers, and cold drafts are not coincidences. They are echoes of human activity, memory, and presence embedded in the space. Visitors leave not simply with curiosity, but with a sense of lingering energy that remains long after they have exited the tunnel. Each shadow, each flicker of light, and each whispered word serves as a reminder of the lives and routines that once filled the corridors and platforms. For those daring enough to explore the Market Street subway tunnel, the experience is unforgettable. Shadowy figures drift along abandoned platforms, phantom trains run silently along the tracks, and whispers echo through empty corridors. Cold drafts chill the air, shadows shift along walls, and the past feels palpably present in every corner. The tunnel is more than an abandoned transit passage. It is a living repository of memory, energy, and unexplained phenomena, ensuring that its haunting will continue to be experienced by all who venture into its shadowed depths. The Broadway subway tunnel in Denver, Colorado, is an abandoned remnant of the city's early transit system, a subterranean network that once thrummed with the noise of trains and the footsteps of commuters. Built decades ago to accommodate Denver's growing urban population, the tunnel has since fallen into disuse, leaving behind empty tracks, cracked concrete, and rusted beams. Over the years, it has developed a reputation among locals and urban explorers as one of the city's most haunted and unsettling places. Shadowy figures reportedly appear in abandoned sections, lights flicker unpredictably along the walls, and phantom maintenance sounds echo eerily through the corridors. The Broadway subway tunnel is more than a relic of transportation history. It is a space where memory, energy, and unexplained phenomena converge, leaving visitors with an experience that is both chilling and unforgettable. Approaching the tunnel, the atmosphere is immediately oppressive. The entrance is framed by weathered concrete and rusted steel supports, partially obscured by graffiti, debris, and overgrowth. Even during daylight hours, a sense of unease permeates the air, as though the tunnel itself is aware of anyone entering its domain. Locals report feeling watched when passing nearby, sometimes catching fleeting glimpses of movement in the darkness beyond the entrance. As night falls, the tunnel's sinister character intensifies. Long, narrow corridors stretch into darkness, with faint reflections from damp walls and puddles creating shifting patterns that make it difficult to distinguish solid structures from shadows. Every sound, the drip of water from the ceiling, the creak of loose debris, or the distant hum of the city above goes unnaturally, amplifying the sense that the tunnel is alive with unseen activity. Shadowy figures are among the most frequently reported phenomena in the Broadway tunnel. Visitors describe vague, human-like forms appearing along tracks or near platforms, sometimes pacing slowly, sometimes standing silently as if waiting for something long past. Many of these apparitions seem to replay the movements of workers or commuters from decades ago, their presence frozen in the space even as they vanish when approached. One urban explorer recounted walking down a side passage when a dark figure suddenly emerged from the shadows, paused briefly as if observing him, and then dissolved into the darkness. Others described multiple figures moving simultaneously, drifting along the tracks or appearing at corners before disappearing without warning. These ghostly presences suggest that the tunnel preserves traces of the lives that once passed through it, lingering like echoes of a forgotten past. Flickering lights are another hallmark of the Broadway tunnel's haunting. Despite the absence of electricity in most sections, visitors frequently report seeing brief illuminations along walls or platforms. These lights often appear to move, sometimes revealing the faint outlines of shadowy figures, and vanish just as quickly, leaving only darkness behind. One visitor described a faint glow along a distant platform that briefly illuminated a figure crouching near an abandoned track before disappearing entirely. Others report sequences of flickering lights traveling along the tunnel, casting ever-shifting shadows, and creating an almost cinematic effect, making it difficult to distinguish between what is real and what is spectral. Phantom maintenance sounds add another layer of unease. Many explorers recount hearing the clang of tools, the scrape of metal against metal, or the hum of machinery coming from sections of the tunnel that are otherwise empty. One urban explorer describes standing on a platform when the unmistakable sound of a hammer striking steel echoed down the corridor. As he followed the noise, it ceased abruptly, leaving nothing but silence and a lingering tension. Others report overlapping sounds, as if multiple maintenance tasks are occurring simultaneously, creating a disorienting effect and the impression that the tunnel is still active in ways invisible to the living. Cold drafts are frequently experienced alongside apparitions, flickering lights, and phantom sounds. Visitors report sudden drops in temperature that seem to follow them through the tunnel, brushing past walls, stairwells, or abandoned platforms. One explorer recounted walking along a side corridor when a sharp, icy gust swept past him, carrying the sensation of an unseen presence. Despite searching, no natural explanation could account for the sudden chill. These cold spots often coincide with other reported phenomena, reinforcing the idea that the tunnel is saturated with the residual energy of those who once worked and moved within it. The physical structure of the Broadway subway tunnel contributes to its haunting atmosphere. Cracked concrete walls, rusted rails, peeling paint, and exposed beams create a labyrinthian environment where shadows, echoes, and reflections distort perception. Water dripping from the ceiling resonates like distant footsteps. Loose debris shifts without warning, and puddles on the floor create distorted reflections that make movement appear unpredictable. Every arch, alcove, and corner holds the potential for a fleeting figure or sudden flash of light, amplifying the tunnel's unsettling character. Explorers often report that the space seems to respond to their presence, with lights, shadows, or sounds manifesting in tandem with their movements. The haunting of the Broadway subway tunnel is inseparable from its history. Shadowy figures, flickering lights, phantom maintenance sounds, and cold drafts are not mere coincidences. They are lingering echoes of human activity, energy, and memory embedded in the space. Visitors leave with more than curiosity. They carry a palpable awareness of the past lingering in the corridors. Every shadow, every flicker of light, and every unexplained sound serves as a reminder of the lives and routines that once animated the tunnel. For those who venture into the Broadway subway tunnel, the experience is unforgettable. Shadowy figures drift along abandoned tracks, lights flicker unpredictably, phantom maintenance sounds echo through empty corridors, and cold drafts chill the air unexpectedly. Shadows shift along walls, whispers of the past seem to linger, and the energy of history feels tangibly present. The tunnel is not simply an abandoned passageway, it's a living archive of memory, energy, and unexplained phenomena. ensuring that its haunting continues to be experienced by all who dare to enter its shadowed depths. The Delaware Avenue Tunnel in Buffalo, New York, is one of the city's most haunting and enigmatic underground spaces. Constructed decades ago to support Buffalo's expanding transit system, the tunnel has long since been abandoned, leaving behind cracked concrete, rusted tracks, and the faint remnants of a once bustling passageway. Over the years, it has gained a reputation among locals, urban explorers, and paranormal enthusiasts as a place where the ordinary rules of the physical world seem to bend. Visitors have reported ghostly figures walking along the tracks, sudden cold spots along the walls, and unexplained footsteps echoing through sections of the tunnel that appear entirely empty. The Delaware Avenue Tunnel is more than a forgotten transit route. It is a space where history, energy, and lingering presence converge, creating an atmosphere that is both unnerving and captivating. From the moment one approaches the tunnel, the atmosphere is charged with unease. The entrance is framed by aged concrete, rusted steel supports, and peeling paint, partially obscured by weeds, graffiti, and scattered debris. Even in daylight, there is a palpable sense of stillness and anticipation, as though the tunnel itself is aware of any intruders. Locals often report a strange feeling of being watched when passing nearby, with shadows occasionally flitting across the darkened interior. At night, the tunnel's character becomes even more ominous. Long, narrow corridors stretch into darkness, while damp walls and puddles reflect whatever minimal light is present, creating shifting illusions that make depth and distance difficult to judge. Every sound, the drip of water from above, the creak of a loose beam, or distant city noises from above ground echoes, unnaturally amplifying the sense that the tunnel is alive with residual energy. Ghostly figures are among the most frequently reported phenomena. Visitors describe vague, human-like shapes appearing along the tracks or near old platforms, sometimes pacing slowly, and other times standing silently as if observing the living. Many of these apparitions appear to replay the routines of those who once moved through the tunnel, frozen in time even as they vanish when approached. One urban explorer recounted walking along a side corridor when he glimpsed a dark figure crouching near the tracks, as if inspecting them. As he approached, the figure simply disappeared into the shadows, leaving behind only a sudden chill. Others have reported multiple figures moving simultaneously, gliding along tracks or vanishing into walls, creating the impression that the tunnel is steeped in memories that refuse to fade. Cold spots are another hallmark of the Delaware Avenue Tunnel's haunting. Visitors frequently report sudden drops in temperature along the walls or near corners, sometimes so sharp that it is physically uncomfortable. One explorer recalled walking down a corridor when an icy gust swept past him, carrying the sensation of an unseen presence brushing by. Despite inspecting for drafts or ventilation, no natural explanation could account for the chill. These cold spots often coincide with sightings of ghostly figures or the sound of phantom footsteps, reinforcing the idea that the tunnel is saturated with the residual energy of its past inhabitants. Unexplained footsteps are another common phenomenon. Explorers have reported hearing the distinct sound of someone walking on the tracks, pacing along platforms, or moving through side corridors, even when the area is completely empty. One visitor described pausing near an abandoned section when the sound of deliberate footsteps echoed toward him from the darkness. As he strained to see, the noise shifted directions, circling him, and then suddenly stopped. Others have reported hearing multiple sets of footsteps moving independently, as if the tunnel is replaying events from a bygone era. The echoing footsteps, combined with cold drafts and shadowy apparitions, contribute to a sense of being accompanied by invisible presences. The physical structure of the Delaware Avenue Tunnel intensifies its haunting atmosphere. Rusted rails, cracked walls, exposed steel beams, and peeling paint create a labyrinthine environment where shadows, echoes, and reflections distort perception. Water dripping from the ceiling resonates like distant footsteps. Loose debris shifts unpredictably, and puddles create distorted reflections that make movement appear uncertain. Every archway, alcove, and corner holds the potential for a fleeting figure, a sudden shadow, or a chilling gust of air, amplifying the tunnel's unnerving qualities. Explorers often report that the space seems to react to their presence, with lights dimming, shadows shifting, or footsteps manifesting as they move, as though the tunnel is aware of their intrusion. The haunting of the Delaware Avenue Tunnel is inseparable from its history. Ghostly figures, cold spots, and phantom footsteps are not coincidences. They are echoes of human activity and presence embedded in the space. Visitors leave with more than curiosity. They carry a lingering awareness of the past. A sense that the tunnel is more than a physical structure, that it retains fragments of those who once walked its corridors. Each shadow, each gust of cold air, and each distant, untraceable sound is a reminder of lives that passed through the tunnel. Some abruptly ended, others merely forgotten. For those who venture into the Delaware Avenue Tunnel, the experience is unforgettable. Ghostly figures drift along abandoned tracks. Cold drafts sweep through narrow corridors, and footsteps echo without a source. Shadows shift along walls, and the air seems to carry whispers of the past. The tunnel is not merely an abandoned passageway. It is a living repository of memory, energy, and unexplained phenomena, ensuring that its haunting will continue to be experienced by anyone brave enough to explore its shadowed depths. The Canal Street subway tunnel in New York City is a forgotten artery beneath the bustling streets, a relic of a time when the city's subway system was still expanding into a vast underground labyrinth. Long abandoned, the tunnel stretches through darkness, lined with crumbling concrete, rusted steel beams, and silent tracks that once carried the endless flow of passengers through lower Manhattan. Over the years, the tunnel has gained a reputation among urban explorers and local residents as one of the city's most haunted subterranean spaces. Witnesses describe phantom trains moving silently along the tracks, shadowy figures lingering on platforms, and strange lights appearing and vanishing with no discernible source. The Canal Street Tunnel is more than a forgotten transit corridor. It is a place where history, tragedy, and unexplained phenomena converge, leaving visitors with an experience both chilling and unforgettable. Even before entering, the tunnel exudes an eerie presence. Its entrances, framed by aging concrete and rusted supports, are often obscured by debris, graffiti, and overgrown weeds. The air around the tunnel feels heavy, charged with a subtle tension that unsettles those nearby. Locals have reported feeling watched when passing, sometimes catching fleeting glimpses of movement from the corner of their eyes. At night, the tunnel transforms into an even more forbidding place. Long corridors stretch into blackness, and dim reflections from puddles or residual lighting create distorted shadows that make it difficult to gauge distance or shape. Every sound, the drip of water from overhead pipes, the occasional creak of shifting debris, or distant traffic above ground echoes through the passageways with an unnatural resonance, amplifying the sensation that the tunnel is alive with invisible activity. Phantom trains are among the most reported phenomena in the Canal Street Tunnel. Explorers recount seeing faint outlines of trains gliding silently along the tracks, accompanied by the distant rattle of wheels against metal, yet finding no physical train when investigating. One visitor described the unmistakable sight of a train emerging from the darkness, lights illuminating a ghostly interior with indistinct passengers who vanished when observed. Others report sensing the movement of trains beneath their feet, feeling subtle vibrations along the tracks, only to discover that the tunnel is completely empty. These spectral trains are often accompanied by faint sounds, metal scraping, brakes hissed, doors clanging that seem real, yet cannot be traced, creating a disorienting experience that blurs the line between reality and the supernatural. Shadowy figures are another hallmark of the tunnel's haunting. Visitors describe human-shaped forms appearing along platforms or near stairwells, sometimes pacing slowly, sometimes standing motionless, and often disappearing when approached. Many of these figures seem to replay moments from the tunnel's past, frozen in motion as though bound to the corridors. One urban explorer recounted seeing a dark figure near an abandoned maintenance alcove, bending over a pile of tools as if completing unfinished work. When he stepped closer, the figure dissolved into darkness, leaving behind a lingering sense of presence and a sudden chill. Others report multiple apparitions moving in unison, drifting along tracks, or vanishing into walls, reinforcing the notion that the tunnel retains fragments of the people who once navigated its corridors. Unexplained lights are frequently reported in conjunction with these figures. Visitors have described flickering glows along the walls, sudden bursts of illumination on platforms, or soft, shifting lights that seem to float in midair. These lights often reveal vague outlines of forms or movement before vanishing completely, leaving the observer in darkness. One explorer remembered a series of flickering lights tracing the path of a phantom train, illuminating the tracks and revealing fleeting silhouettes of figures before vanishing entirely. The unpredictable nature of these lights adds a surreal quality to the tunnel, making it difficult to distinguish between ordinary decay, reflections, and something far more otherworldly. Phantom sounds, such as echoes of footsteps, tools clanging, or muffled voices, accompany the tunnel's visual phenomena. Explorers have reported the unmistakable sound of someone walking along tracks or pacing a platform, even when the area is empty. One visitor described hearing overlapping footsteps circling him as he paused near an abandoned section. The sound shifted direction without explanation, eventually fading into silence, leaving him disoriented and tense. Others have described faint murmurs, indistinct voices, and the occasional high-pitched scream echoing through the tunnel, as though the walls themselves are replaying events from the past. Cold drafts are another commonly reported feature of the tunnel. Visitors often experience sudden drops in temperature, sometimes so sharp it is physically unsettling. One explorer recalled walking down a narrow passage when an icy gust swept past, carrying the sensation of a presence brushing against him. Despite inspecting for ventilation or structural causes, no explanation could be found. These cold spots frequently coincide with the appearance of shadowy figures, phantom trains, or unexplained sounds, reinforcing the tunnel's reputation as a repository of residual energy. The architecture of the Canal Street Tunnel enhances its haunting atmosphere. Rusted rails, cracked walls, exposed beams, and puddles create a labyrinthine environment where shadows and reflections play tricks on perception. Water dripping from the ceiling resonates like distant footsteps. Debris shifts unpredictably, and reflections in puddles make movement seem alive. Every corner, alcove, and stairwell has the potential to reveal a fleeting figure, a sudden glow, or a whisper of sound, amplifying the tunnel's unsettling qualities. Explorers often note that the tunnel appears to respond to their presence, with lights flickering, shadows shifting, and sounds manifesting in tandem with their movements. The haunting of the Canal Street subway tunnel is inseparable from its history. Phantom trains, shadowy figures, flickering lights, unexplained footsteps, and cold drafts are not random occurrences. They are echoes of the tunnel's past, embedded in the space by the memories and energies of those who once navigated it. Visitors leave not only with curiosity, but with a palpable awareness of the past lingering in the corridors. Each shadow, each sudden illumination, and each unexplained sound serves as a reminder of lives, routines, and accidents that left an indelible mark on the space. For those brave enough to explore the Canal Street Tunnel, the experience is unforgettable. Phantom trains glide silently along abandoned tracks. Shadowy figures drift through corridors, lights flicker unpredictably, and footsteps echo from nowhere. Cold drafts chill the air, shadows shift along walls, and the past feels palpably present. The tunnel is more than a forgotten passageway. It is a living archive of memory, energy, and unexplained phenomena, ensuring that its haunting will continue to be experienced by all who venture into its shadowed depths. The Broadway Tunnel in Nashville, Tennessee, is a dark and narrow passage beneath the city streets, a structure whose history is marked by both urban progress and tragedy. Built in the early 20th century to accommodate increasing traffic and expansion in the city, the tunnel was the site of several construction accidents during its creation. leaving a legacy of lives lost and unresolved sorrow. Over the decades, the Broadway Tunnel has acquired a reputation among locals, historians, and urban explorers as one of Nashville's most haunted places. Visitors report seeing ghostly workers lingering along the walls, hearing strange echoes that cannot be explained, and witnessing shadowy figures that move unpredictably through the dimly lit passage. The tunnel is more than a transportation corridor. It is a repository of memory, tragedy, and lingering energy, where the past seems to refuse to remain silent. Approaching the Broadway Tunnel, one immediately senses its oppressive atmosphere. The entrance is framed by aged concrete and rusted metal supports, partially hidden by graffiti, debris, and creeping plant growth. Even during the day, there is an almost tangible tension in the air, a feeling of being watched or followed. Locals often report seeing shadows flicker at the edges of their vision, vanishing when looked at directly. At night, the tunnel becomes far more foreboding. Long corridors stretch into darkness, punctuated only by the faint reflections from puddles or distant streetlights that filter in from the entrances. Every noise, the drip of water from the ceiling, the clatter of loose debris, or distant city traffic, above echoes through the tunnel in distorted and unnerving ways, amplifying the sensation that the space is alive with unseen presences. Ghostly figures are among the most frequently reported phenomena. Visitors describe faint, human-like shapes moving along the walls or tracks, sometimes pacing deliberately, sometimes standing silently as if observing intruders. Many of these figures appear to be reenacting the routines of workers from the tunnel's construction era, frozen in time yet unmistakably present. One urban explorer recounted walking down a side corridor when he saw a dark figure bent over near a pile of discarded tools, seemingly laboring on something invisible. As he approached, the figure vanished into the shadows, leaving only a lingering chill and a sense of sorrow. Others describe multiple apparitions moving independently, drifting along walls, or disappearing into the corners of the tunnel, creating the impression that the Broadway Tunnel preserves the memory of the lives lost during its construction. Strange and unexplained sounds are another hallmark of the tunnel's haunting. Many visitors report hearing the echo of tools striking metal, the scrape of machinery, or the clatter of footsteps on stone floors, even in sections where no one could possibly be present. One explorer described standing near a dark alcove when the unmistakable sound of hammering came from a corner. Following the noise, it abruptly ceased, leaving the corridor silent and the explorer shaken. Others report overlapping sounds, as if multiple workers were moving and laboring simultaneously, though the tunnel is empty. These phantom sounds give the impression that the tunnel is replaying the labor, effort, and tragedy of those who once toiled and perished there. Cold spots are frequently experienced alongside these figures and sounds. Visitors report sudden drops in temperature along certain sections of the tunnel, sometimes so severe that it is physically uncomfortable. One urban explorer recounted walking past a narrow alcove when an icy gust swept along the wall, carrying the sensation of an unseen presence brushing past him. Despite careful inspection, no natural cause could explain the chill. These cold drafts often coincide with sightings of shadowy figures or the sound of phantom footsteps, suggesting a strong link between the tunnel's lingering energy and the experiences of those who enter it. The tunnel's architecture amplifies its eerie qualities. Cracked concrete walls, rusted steel supports, peeling paint, and standing water create a labyrinthine environment where shadows, reflections, and echoes distort perception. Dripping water resonates like footsteps, loose debris shifts unexpectedly, and puddles cast distorted reflections that make movement appear animated. Every archway, alcove, and corner has the potential to reveal a fleeting figure, a sudden sound, or an icy gust, reinforcing the feeling that the tunnel is far from empty. Visitors often note that the space seems to respond to their presence, with shadows, lights, and sounds appearing in sync with their movements, as though the tunnel is aware of their intrusion. The haunting of the Broadway Tunnel is inseparable from its tragic history. Ghostly workers, shadowy figures, unexplained sounds, and sudden cold spots are not random phenomena. They are echoes of human lives lost and energies left behind. The tunnel preserves the memory of its past, reminding all who enter of the toil, accidents, and sorrow that shaped it. Visitors leave with more than curiosity. They carry with them a sense of lingering presence, an awareness that the past is never truly gone. Every shadow, every sound, and every chill is a testament to the lives once intertwined with the tunnel, whether through work, travel, or untimely death. For those who dare to enter the Broadway tunnel, the experience is unforgettable. Shadowy figures move silently along walls. Phantom sounds echo from empty alcoves, and sudden chills sweep through narrow corridors. The air feels alive with memory and presence, and the past seems to overlay itself on the present. The tunnel is not merely an abandoned passageway beneath the city. It is a living archive of tragedy, labor, and unexplained phenomena. For anyone willing to venture into its shadowed depths, the Broadway tunnel ensures that its haunting will be experienced firsthand, leaving a lasting impression long after the journey ends. The Monroe Avenue subway tunnel in Rochester, New York, is a subterranean relic of the city's once bustling transit system. Constructed during a period of rapid urban expansion, the tunnel was designed to carry commuters efficiently beneath the busy streets of Rochester. Over time, as transit needs evolved and sections of the subway were abandoned, the Monroe Avenue tunnel fell into disuse, leaving behind empty tracks, cracked walls, and rusted supports. Yet even in its abandonment, the tunnel has become infamous among locals, urban explorers, and paranormal enthusiasts for its chilling atmosphere. Visitors recount phantom footsteps echoing through deserted corridors, shadowy apparitions lingering on platforms, and sudden, unexplained cold drafts that sweep along the walls. The tunnel is not simply a disused piece of infrastructure. It is a vessel for memories, energy, and inexplicable phenomena that continue to haunt those who enter. Even from a distance, the Monroe Avenue tunnel exudes a sense of foreboding. Its entrances are framed by crumbling concrete, rusted steel beams, and graffiti-stained walls. Debris and overgrown vegetation partially obscure the access points, giving the tunnel an air of neglect and abandonment. Those who pass nearby often report an unsettling feeling, as though invisible eyes are observing them. Shadows appear to move just beyond the periphery of vision, vanishing whenever directly confronted. As night falls, the tunnel's ominous presence becomes far more palpable. Long, narrow corridors stretch into darkness, and dim reflections from puddles and residual lighting cast shifting patterns across the walls. Every sound, dripping water, loose debris, distant traffic above ground, decodes unnaturally, magnifying the impression that the space is alive with unseen activity. Phantom footsteps are among the most frequently reported phenomena. Visitors describe hearing the unmistakable sound of someone walking along tracks, pacing a platform, or climbing stairs, even when the tunnel is completely empty. One urban explorer recounted pausing near an abandoned platform when the distinct echo of footsteps approached him from a side corridor. The sound grew louder, as if someone were walking toward him, but when he shone his flashlight, no one was there. Other visitors report hearing multiple sets of footsteps, sometimes moving in opposing directions, creating the sensation that the tunnel is replaying the movements of its past occupants. These disembodied steps often provoke a mixture of fear and fascination, leaving witnesses tense and hyper-aware of every sound and shadow. Shadowy apparitions are another hallmark of the Monroe Avenue tunnel. Visitors report faint, human-shaped forms appearing on platforms, near stairwells, or at the edges of their vision. Some figures appear to be waiting, while others seem to move deliberately along tracks or corridors before disappearing into darkness. One explorer describes seeing a dark figure pacing near an abandoned maintenance alcove, bent over a pile of tools as if engaged in unseen work. As he approached, the figure dissolved into the shadows, leaving only a lingering chill. Others have observed multiple apparitions moving simultaneously, drifting along walls, or vanishing into corners, giving the impression that the tunnel retains fragments of life from decades past. Unexplained cold drafts often accompany these spectral phenomena. Visitors describe sudden drops in temperature, particularly near certain corners, stairwells, or platforms. These chills can be physically uncomfortable, and in many cases, occur with no discernible source. One urban explorer recalls walking through a narrow corridor when an icy gust swept along the wall, as if an invisible presence brushed past him. Despite inspecting for drafts or ventilation systems, no natural cause could be found. These cold spots frequently coincide with phantom footsteps or shadowy figures, reinforcing the idea that the tunnel is charged with residual energy from its history. The architecture of the Monroe Avenue Tunnel amplifies its eerie qualities. Cracked walls, rusted supports, peeling paint, and standing water create a labyrinthine environment where shadows, reflections, and echoes distort perception. Water dripping from the ceiling resonates like distant footsteps. Loose debris shifts without warning, and puddles reflect shapes that seem to move on their own. Every archway, alcove, and corner holds the potential for a fleeting figure. Sudden sound, or cold gust, making exploration a tense and unpredictable experience. Visitors often report that the tunnel seems to react to their presence, with shadows shifting, footsteps echoing, or chills intensifying in response to movement. The haunting of the Monroe Avenue Tunnel is inseparable from its history. Phantom footsteps, shadowy apparitions, and unexplained cold drafts are not random occurrences. They are echoes of the people who once moved through the space, bound to it by memory, energy, or tragedy. The tunnel preserves traces of its past, allowing visitors to experience the lingering presence of former commuters, workers, and others whose lives intersected with the subway. Every shadow, sound, and chill serves as a reminder that the past is not gone. It remains embedded within the walls and floors of the tunnel, waiting to make itself known. For those who venture into the Monroe Avenue Tunnel, the experience is unforgettable. Phantom footsteps reverberate along empty tracks. Shadowy figures drift through dim corridors, and sudden cold drafts sweep past walls. The tunnel's architecture, combined with residual energy, creates an atmosphere where the past and present seem to overlap, leaving visitors acutely aware of the unseen. The Monroe Avenue subway tunnel is more than a forgotten piece of infrastructure. It is a living archive of memory, energy, and unexplained phenomena, ensuring that its haunting continues to affect all who dare to step into its shadowed depths. The Jackson Street subway tunnel in Minneapolis, Minnesota, is a long-forgotten artery beneath the city streets, a relic of early 20th century transit expansion. Built to facilitate the growing movement of people and goods, the tunnel was once a bustling thoroughfare, echoing with the sounds of trains and commuters. Today, it stands abandoned, its tracks rusted, walls cracked, and passageways silent, yet it is far from empty. Over the years, the tunnel has gained a reputation among urban explorers, locals, and paranormal enthusiasts as one of Minneapolis's most haunted underground spaces. Witnesses report ghostly figures moving along the tracks, mysterious lights appearing in abandoned sections, and phantom voices echoing through the tunnel, creating an atmosphere that is equal parts chilling and captivating. The Jackson Street Tunnel is more than an unused subway corridor. It is a place where history, memory, and unexplained phenomena converge. Even before entering, the tunnel exudes an unsettling presence. Its entrances, framed by aged concrete and rusted steel supports, are partially obscured by graffiti, debris, and creeping plant growth. Visitors often describe a feeling of being watched or followed, and shadows seem to flicker at the edges of perception. At night, the tunnel's character becomes even more foreboding. Long, narrow corridors stretch into darkness, interrupted only by the occasional glimmer of residual light reflecting off puddles or metal surfaces. Every sound, the drip of water from pipes, the creak of loose debris, or distant city noises from above resonates throughout the passageways, echoing unnaturally and amplifying the sensation that the tunnel is alive with unseen activity. Ghostly figures are among the most frequently reported phenomena in the Jackson Street Tunnel. Visitors describe vague, human-shaped forms appearing along the tracks or near platforms, sometimes moving deliberately, sometimes standing silently as if observing. Many of these figures appear to replay moments from the tunnel's past, frozen in time, yet unmistakably present. One urban explorer recounted seeing a dark figure pacing near an abandoned staircase, only to vanish into the shadows when approached. Others have reported multiple figures drifting along tracks or disappearing into alcoves, giving the impression that the tunnel preserves fragments of the people who once traveled through it. These apparitions are not always threatening. Their presence seems to be a lingering imprint, a reminder of the tunnel's history and the lives that intersected with it. Mysterious lights are another hallmark of the tunnel's haunting. Visitors often report flickering glows appearing along walls, faint orbs hovering in corners, or beams of illumination tracing the tracks before vanishing entirely. One explorer described a soft, pulsating light emerging from a side tunnel, illuminating a section of tracks and revealing a shadowy figure standing silently before disappearing into darkness. These lights often appear without explanation, defying any logical source, and contribute to the surreal and eerie atmosphere. Combined with the ghostly figures, the lights make it difficult for visitors to distinguish between reality, trickery of the mind, and true supernatural activity. Phantom voices are also frequently experienced within the Jackson Street Tunnel. Visitors recount hearing whispers, distant conversations, or even calls of their own names echoing through the corridors. One explorer described pausing near a side alcove when a faint voice called out from the darkness, repeating a phrase he could not understand. The sound seemed to come from all directions, moving and shifting in a way that made its source impossible to locate. Others report overlapping whispers, laughter, or the indistinct murmur of past conversations, creating the impression that the tunnel is replaying echoes of its former occupants. These sounds often accompany sightings of apparitions or mysterious lights, reinforcing the sense that the tunnel is saturated with residual energy. Cold drafts frequently accompany the visual and auditory phenomena. Visitors often experience sudden drops in temperature along certain sections of the tunnel, sometimes so sharp as to be physically uncomfortable. One urban explorer recalled walking past a corner when an icy gust swept across the tracks, as if a presence had brushed past him. Despite thorough inspection, no natural explanation could account for the chill. These cold spots often coincide with sightings of ghostly figures or the sound of phantom voices, creating an atmosphere of heightened tension and unease. The architecture of the Jackson Street Tunnel intensifies its haunting qualities. Cracked concrete walls, rusted steel supports, peeling paint, and puddles create a labyrinthian environment where shadows, reflections, and echoes distort perception. Water dripping from the ceiling resonates like distant footsteps, and debris shifts unpredictably, making every corner, alcove, and stairwell a potential site for a fleeting apparition or a sudden sound. Visitors often report that the tunnel seems to respond to their presence, with shadows shifting, lights flickering, or phantom voices intensifying in proximity to human movement. The haunting of the Jackson Street Tunnel is inseparable from its history. Ghostly figures, mysterious lights, phantom voices, and cold drafts are not random occurrences. They are echoes of the people who once walked, worked, and traveled through the tunnel. The space preserves fragments of its past, allowing visitors to experience the lingering presence of those who came before. Each shadow, each light, and each unexplained sound serves as a reminder that the past is embedded within the walls and floors, waiting to reveal itself. For those who venture into the Jackson Street subway tunnel, the experience is unforgettable. Ghostly figures drift along abandoned tracks. Mysterious lights appear and vanish without explanation, and phantom voices echo through the darkness. Cold drafts sweep the passageways, and shadows shift in ways that defy reason. The tunnel is more than an abandoned subway. It is a living archive of memory, energy, and unexplained phenomena, ensuring that its haunting will continue to affect all who step into its shadowed depths. The Pine Street Tunnel in Portland, Maine, is a long-abandoned passage beneath the city streets, a relic of Portland's early transportation network. Once a busy conduit for trains and maintenance crews, the tunnel now lies largely forgotten. Its tracks rusted, walls cracked, and corridors silent. Despite its abandonment, the tunnel has gained a reputation among locals and urban explorers as one of the most haunted locations in the city. Visitors frequently report shadowy figures disappearing into walls, sudden cold spots along the tracks, and unexplained bangs that echo through the night, creating an atmosphere of unease and curiosity. The Pine Street Tunnel is more than an old passageway. It is a repository of history, tragedy, and residual energy, where the past refuses to remain buried. Even from the street above, the tunnel exudes a sense of foreboding. Its entrances, framed by cracked concrete and rusted steel, are often partially hidden by debris, graffiti, and overgrown vegetation. Locals passing nearby describe an uneasy sensation, as if unseen eyes are watching from the shadows. At night, the tunnel becomes even more ominous. Long corridors stretch into darkness, punctuated by occasional glimmers of reflected light or the faint glow from street lamps above. Every sound, the drip of water from pipes, the creak of loose metal, or distant traffic resonates through the passageways in a distorted and unsettling manner, giving the impression that the tunnel is alive with invisible activity. Shadowy figures are among the most commonly reported phenomena in the Pine Street Tunnel. Visitors describe vague, human-shaped forms appearing along the tracks or near abandoned platforms, often moving with deliberate slowness or standing silently as if observing. Many of these figures appear to replay moments from the tunnel's past, frozen in motion, yet undeniably present. One urban explorer recounted walking down a narrow passage when he saw a figure pacing along the edge of the tracks. As he approached, the figure faded into the wall, leaving behind a lingering sense of unease. Others report multiple apparitions moving independently, drifting along walls or disappearing into corners, suggesting that the tunnel preserves fragments of those who once worked, traveled, or perished there. Sudden cold spots often accompany these spectral sightings. Visitors frequently feel a sharp drop in temperature along certain sections of the tunnel, sometimes enough to make the air physically uncomfortable. One explorer described walking past a stairwell when an icy gust swept along the tracks, as if a presence had brushed past him. Despite thorough inspection, no natural cause could explain the chill. These cold drafts frequently coincide with sightings of shadowy figures or the sound of phantom footsteps, reinforcing the tunnel's reputation as a space charged with residual energy. Unexplained sounds are another hallmark of the Pine Street Tunnel. Visitors report sudden bangs, crashes, or echoes that seem to come from nowhere. One urban explorer described hearing the sharp sound of a metal object striking the tracks, followed by a series of rapid knocks echoing down the corridor. He investigated thoroughly, finding only empty walls and debris, yet the sounds persisted in irregular patterns. Others have reported overlapping noises, the scraping of tools, distant footsteps, or faint whispers, creating the impression that the tunnel is replaying moments from its history in an endless loop. The tunnel's architecture amplifies its eerie qualities. Cracked concrete walls, rusted rails, peeling paint, and standing water create a labyrinthine environment where shadows, reflections, and echoes distort perception. Water dripping from the ceiling resonates like distant footsteps. Loose debris shifts unpredictably, and puddles reflect shapes that seem to move on their own. Every corner, alcove, and stairwell has the potential to reveal a fleeting figure, a sudden sound, or a chilling gust of air, making exploration a tense and unpredictable experience. Visitors often report that the tunnel seems to respond to their presence, with shadows shifting, bangs echoing, or cold spots intensifying in proximity to human movement. The haunting of the Pine Street Tunnel is inseparable from its history. Shadowy figures, unexplained cold drafts, and phantom noises are not random occurrences. They are echoes of the people who once worked, traveled, or were trapped within its walls. The space preserves fragments of its past, allowing visitors to experience the lingering presence of those who walked or perished there decades ago. Every shadow, every gust of cold air, and every unexplained bang serves as a reminder that the past is embedded within the tunnel, waiting to make itself known to the present. For those who venture into the Pine Street Tunnel, the experience is unforgettable. Shadowy figures drift along the tracks, cold drafts sweep the passageways, and phantom bangs echo through the darkness. The tunnel's architecture, combined with residual energy, creates an atmosphere in which the past and present seem to overlap. Every step along the worn concrete, every glance into a dark corner, reinforces the sense that the tunnel is alive with memories and unseen presences. The Pine Street Tunnel is more than an abandoned subway passage. It is a living archive of history, energy, and unexplained phenomena, ensuring that its haunting continues to be felt by anyone daring enough to step into its shadowed depths. The Broad Street Tunnel in Newark, New Jersey, is an abandoned subterranean passage with a chilling reputation, originally constructed to ease the flow of traffic beneath the bustling city streets. The tunnel's early years were marked by both progress and tragedy. Several construction accidents during its creation left workers injured or dead, and over time, their presence seemed to linger long after the tunnel was abandoned. Today, the Broad Street Tunnel is a place of shadowed corridors, cracked concrete, and rusted rails, a dark artery beneath Newark that draws urban explorers, thrill seekers, and paranormal enthusiasts alike. Visitors consistently report encounters with ghostly workers, lights flickering with no electrical cause, and the echo of phantom footsteps, giving the tunnel a reputation as one of the most haunted sites in the region. From the outside, the tunnel appears innocuous. Its entrances are marked by aged concrete, rusted steel supports, and layers of graffiti, partially hidden by overgrown weeds and debris. Yet locals often describe an uneasy feeling near its mouth, as though unseen eyes are watching. Entering the tunnel, the oppressive atmosphere only grows. Dim reflections from puddles of stagnant water and faint light filtering through cracks in the ceiling cast long shadows that seem to twist and move. Every sound, the distant hum of traffic overhead, the drip of water from broken pipes, the clatter of debris goes through the tunnel's corridors with an unnatural resonance, amplifying the impression that the space is alive with unseen activity. One of the most commonly reported phenomena in the Broad Street Tunnel is the appearance of ghostly workers. Visitors describe dark, human-shaped figures appearing along the tracks or near maintenance alcoves, often moving in repetitive motions, as if still performing the labor that once claimed their lives. One urban explorer recounted standing near an abandoned platform when he saw a figure bent over, seemingly shoveling debris or adjusting an unseen piece of equipment. As he stepped closer, the figure dissipated into the shadows, leaving him with only a lingering chill and the sense of having intruded on a moment frozen in time. Other witnesses describe multiple apparitions moving independently, pacing hallways, climbing stairwells, or disappearing into corners, giving the impression that the tunnel preserves fragments of its tragic history. Flickering lights are another hallmark of the tunnel's haunting. Visitors frequently report illumination along the walls, on tracks, or above alcoves that appear suddenly, pulsate, and vanish just as quickly. These lights often occur in areas where electrical power is long disconnected, creating an unnerving sense of the supernatural. One explorer recalled walking past a rusted staircase when a soft, flickering glow illuminated a corner, revealing a shadowy figure standing motionless before the light abruptly vanished. Others report seeing a trail of light follow them down the corridor, only to disappear when they reached the far end. Combined with phantom figures and echoing footsteps, these lights create an otherworldly atmosphere that blurs the line between reality and imagination. Phantom footsteps are perhaps the most unnerving phenomenon reported in the Broad Street Tunnel. Visitors often hear distinct footsteps pacing along tracks, staircases, or corridors, even when the tunnel is completely empty. One explorer described pausing near an abandoned maintenance area when the echo of heavy boots approached him from behind. He turned quickly, flashlight sweeping the corridor, but no one was there. Other witnesses report multiple sets of footsteps moving in opposing directions, creating the impression of a crowd invisible to the eye. These sounds often coincide with sightings of ghostly workers or flickering lights, reinforcing the idea that the tunnel is saturated with lingering energy. Cold spots and sudden chills are also commonly experienced. Visitors frequently feel temperature drops along certain sections, sometimes sharply enough to be physically noticeable. One urban explorer recounted walking near a side wall when a gust of icy air swept past him, carrying the sensation of an unseen presence brushing against his arm. Despite careful inspection, no natural cause for the chill could be identified. These cold drafts often accompany apparitions or the sound of phantom footsteps, creating an atmosphere that is both terrifying and unforgettable. The architecture of the Broad Street Tunnel enhances its haunting qualities. Cracked walls, rusted beams, peeling paint, and standing water create a labyrinthine environment where shadows and reflections distort perception. Water dripping from the ceiling resonates like distant footsteps. Loose debris shifts unpredictably, and every corner or alcove could conceal a fleeting apparition or a sudden sound. Visitors often report that the tunnel seems to respond to their presence, with lights flickering, shadows shifting, or footsteps echoing in proximity to human movement. The haunting of the Broad Street Tunnel is inseparable from its history. Ghostly workers, flickering lights, phantom footsteps, and cold drafts are not random occurrences. They are echoes of lives lost during its construction and moments frozen in time. The space preserves fragments of its past, allowing visitors to experience the lingering presence of those who once walked, labored, and perished within its walls. Every shadow, every flicker, and every chill is a testament to the tunnel's tragic history, a reminder that the past never truly disappears. For those daring enough to explore the Broad Street Tunnel, the experience is unforgettable. Ghostly workers move silently along the tracks. Lights appear and vanish with no source, and the echo of phantom footsteps follows each step. Cold drafts sweep through narrow corridors, and shadows shift in ways that defy explanation. The tunnel is more than an abandoned passageway beneath Newark. It is a living archive of memory, tragedy, and unexplained phenomena, ensuring that its haunting will continue to linger for anyone willing to step into its darkened depths. The State Street Subway Tunnel in Salt Lake City, Utah, is a long-forgotten remnant of the city's ambitious transit past. Built during a period of rapid urban growth, the tunnel was intended to facilitate commuter traffic beneath the bustling streets of downtown Salt Lake. Decades ago, trains once thundered along its tracks. Passengers hurried along platforms, and maintenance crews moved through its corridors. Over time, as transportation needs evolved and above-ground alternatives became preferred, the tunnel was abandoned. Today, it stands silent, decaying, and largely hidden from view. Yet, it has become infamous among urban explorers, locals, and paranormal enthusiasts. Visitors frequently report shadowy figures gliding along tracks, phantom trains materializing and disappearing, and sudden cold drafts that seem to follow anyone daring enough to enter. The State Street Subway Tunnel is far more than an abandoned transit corridor. It is a vessel for history, memory, and unexplained phenomena that continues to haunt all who step inside. From the outside, the tunnel's entrances appear unremarkable, concrete and steel, aged and cracked, partially concealed by overgrowth or urban detritus. But locals often feel an unease near its thresholds, as if the air itself remembers the countless footsteps that once crossed these platforms. Entering the tunnel, this uneasy sensation intensifies. Long, narrow corridors stretch into darkness, lit only by stray shafts of ambient light reflecting off puddles or rusted rails. Every sound, dripping water, the distant rumble of surface traffic, shifting debris, resonates unnaturally, echoing through the passageways and amplifying the impression that the tunnel is alive with unseen activity. Shadowy figures are among the most frequently reported phenomena in the State Street Tunnel. Visitors describe vague, human-shaped forms appearing along the tracks, near stairwells, or on platforms. Some figures seem to move deliberately, pacing or gesturing as if caught in a loop from decades past, while others simply vanish into the darkness when approached. One urban explorer recounted walking past a platform when he noticed a tall figure standing silently, watching him. As he stepped closer, the figure seemed to dissolve into the shadows, leaving him with an icy sense of being observed. Others report multiple apparitions moving independently, drifting through corridors or disappearing around corners, creating the impression that the tunnel retains fragments of the people who once traveled or worked within it. Phantom trains are another hallmark of the tunnel's haunting. Witnesses describe the sudden sound of engines, wheels clattering on rails, and the hiss of brakes, only to find no train present. Some report seeing a shadowy train materialize in the distance, its shape barely illuminated by faint reflections on the tunnel walls, before vanishing as it approaches or passes through a bend. These experiences are often accompanied by the sense of movement along the tracks or vibrations beneath one's feet, heightening the illusion of an active subway. The combination of spectral trains and shadowy figures creates a surreal, almost cinematic atmosphere, blurring the line between reality and the imagination. Cold drafts frequently accompany these spectral phenomena. Visitors often feel a sudden drop in temperature along certain stretches of the tunnel, sometimes sharply enough to make their skin crawl. One explorer described walking past a stairwell when an icy gust swept across his body, as if a presence had brushed past him. Despite careful inspection, no ventilation or structural cause could explain the chill. These cold spots often coincide with sightings of shadowy figures or phantom trains, reinforcing the tunnel's reputation as a place where residual energy lingers. The tunnel's architecture amplifies its unsettling qualities. Cracked concrete walls, rusted steel supports, peeling paint, and standing water create a labyrinthian environment where shadows and reflections constantly shift. Every corner, stairwell, and alcove holds the potential for a fleeting apparition, a sudden sound, or a chilling gust of air. Visitors often report that the tunnel seems to respond to their presence. Lights flicker, shadows lengthen, and phantom noises grow louder as they move through the corridors. The design of the tunnel, combined with its history and atmospheric decay, makes exploration an intense and disorienting experience. The haunting of the State Street Tunnel is inseparable from its history. Shadowy figures, phantom trains, and cold drafts are not random phenomena. They are echoes of lives once lived within the tunnel's walls. The space preserves fragments of its past, allowing visitors to feel the lingering presence of former commuters, maintenance workers, and others who intersected with the subway decades ago. Every shadow, every sudden chill, and every echo of a train serves as a reminder that the past is not gone. It remains embedded in the walls and tracks, waiting to reveal itself to the present. For those who venture into the State Street subway tunnel, the experience is unforgettable. Every sound echoes, every shadow shifts, and every chill leaves a tangible mark on the imagination. The tunnel is more than an abandoned urban relic. It is a living archive of memory, energy, and unexplained phenomena, ensuring that its haunting will continue to captivate and unsettle anyone daring enough to walk its shadowed depths. The Canal Street subway tunnel in Chicago, Illinois, is one of the city's most mysterious and haunting underground spaces. Long abandoned and largely forgotten, it stretches beneath busy streets, a remnant of early 20th century transit expansion. Once bustling with commuters, maintenance crews, and the constant hum of trains, the tunnel now lies in silence, its rails rusted and its corridors shadowed. Despite the decades of disuse, locals and urban explorers alike have reported a series of inexplicable phenomena that give the tunnel a chilling reputation. Apparitions along the tracks, phantom voices echoing through empty corridors, and flickering lights appearing without cause create an atmosphere where history and the supernatural seem to intersect. The Canal Street Tunnel is more than a relic of Chicago's past. It is a corridor of lingering memories and unexplained presences, drawing the curious and the brave into its darkness. Even before entering, the tunnel radiates a sense of unease. Its entrances, framed by crumbling concrete and rusted steel supports, are partially hidden by debris and urban overgrowth. Passers-by often report an inexplicable chill near these entrances, a feeling that unseen eyes are watching. Inside, the tunnel amplifies this sensation. The narrow passage stretches into darkness, interrupted only by occasional shafts of light reflecting off puddles or rusted metal. Every sound, the drip of water from cracked pipes, the distant rumble of city traffic overhead, or the shuffle of loose abricots, unnaturally, making the silence between noises almost unbearable. It is as if the tunnel itself is alive, resonating with the energies of its long-forgotten past. Apparitions are among the most frequently reported phenomena in the Canal Street Tunnel. Witnesses describe vague, human-shaped figures appearing along the tracks, standing on platforms, or moving through side passages. These figures often appear semi-transparent, shadowy, and sometimes indistinct, as if they are echoes of people who once traversed the tunnel. One urban explorer recalled walking down a long stretch of corridor when a figure emerged near the edge of the tracks. Watching silently, as he approached, the apparition faded into the darkness, leaving only a lingering chill and the sense that he had witnessed a fragment of history replayed. Others report seeing multiple figures simultaneously, drifting through corridors or vanishing around corners, creating the impression that the tunnel is inhabited by echoes of its past occupants. Phantom voices are another hallmark of the Canal Street Tunnel. Visitors frequently hear whispers, distant conversations, or calls of their own names echoing through the darkness. One explorer described pausing near a stairwell when a soft voice whispered his name, the sound seeming to come from multiple directions at once. Another reported hearing faint arguments, laughter, or cries that seemed to belong to the commuters and workers of long ago. These voices often accompany sightings of apparitions, reinforcing the notion that the tunnel is a vessel of residual energy, replaying moments from its history for those who dare to listen. Unexplained lights add to the tunnel's haunting character. Witnesses often describe faint glows along the walls, reflections on puddles, or orbs hovering in corners. These lights appear suddenly, flicker, and vanish without explanation, often in areas where no electrical power exists. One visitor recounted a soft, pulsating glow appearing along the tracks, briefly illuminating a shadowy figure before disappearing entirely. Others have seen lights trailing down corridors, seemingly guiding or warning those who walk the abandoned tunnels. Combined with apparitions and phantom voices, these flickering illuminations create an environment that is disorienting, surreal, and deeply unsettling. Cold drafts are also a frequent feature of the Canal Street Tunnel. Explorers often report sudden drops in temperature along certain sections, sometimes sharp enough to be physically uncomfortable. One urban explorer described walking past a side alcove when an icy gust swept across his body, as though an unseen presence had brushed past him. Despite thorough investigation, no natural cause for these sudden chills could be identified. These cold spots frequently coincide with apparitions or phantom sounds, intensifying the feeling that the tunnel is not merely abandoned, but inhabited by lingering spirits. The architecture of the Canal Street Tunnel amplifies its eerie qualities. Cracked concrete walls, peeling paint, rusted rails, and standing water create a maze-like environment where shadows and reflections constantly shift. Every corner, alcove, and stairwell can conceal a fleeting figure, an unexplained sound, or a sudden gust of cold air. Visitors often report that the tunnel seems to react to their presence, with lights flickering, shadows moving, and phantom voices growing louder as they explore. This dynamic interplay of structure, history, and residual energy makes the tunnel an intense, disorienting, and unforgettable environment. The haunting of the Canal Street Tunnel is inseparable from its history. Apparitions, phantom voices, flickering lights, and cold drafts are not random occurrences. They are echoes of the countless people who once traversed, worked, and lived through the space. The tunnel preserves fragments of its past, allowing visitors to sense the presence of those long gone. Each shadow, every flicker of light, and each echoing whisper is a reminder that the past remains embedded in the walls and tracks, waiting to reveal itself to the present. For those who venture into the Canal Street subway tunnel, the experience is both chilling and unforgettable. Shadowy figures drift along the tracks, phantom voices echo through the darkness, and unexplained lights flicker in empty corners. Cold drafts sweep through the passageways, Shadows shift in unsettling ways, and every sound seems amplified by the tunnel's eerie acoustics. More than a simple abandoned subway, the Canal Street Tunnel is a living archive of memory, energy, and unexplained phenomena, ensuring that its haunting continues to intrigue and unsettle anyone daring enough to step into its shadowed depths. The Broadway subway tunnel in New York City is one of the most enigmatic and chilling corners of the city's vast underground network. Though it was once a vital artery for commuters and maintenance crews, parts of the tunnel have long been abandoned, left to decay beneath the bustling streets of Manhattan. Rusted rails, cracked concrete, and peeling paint mark its silent corridors. Yet despite the absence of daily activity, the tunnel seems far from lifeless. Visitors, urban explorers, and local legends alike speak of ghostly figures appearing along platforms, phantom trains gliding through empty tracks, and echoes of cries and footsteps that linger long after the tunnel should have gone quiet. The Broadway subway tunnel is more than a forgotten infrastructure. It is a space where the past and the supernatural intersect, creating an unsettling presence that has captured the imagination of those brave enough to explore its depths. Even at its entrances, the tunnel projects a sense of unease. Rusted steel beams and crumbling concrete partially conceal its access points, often hidden beneath layers of debris, graffiti, and city grime. Locals passing nearby frequently report an inexplicable chill, a sensation as though unseen eyes are observing. Once inside, the tunnel's atmosphere becomes more oppressive. Long, narrow corridors stretch into darkness, punctuated only by faint reflections of ambient light or the occasional glint of rusted tracks. Every sound dripping water, the hum of distant traffic overhead, shifting double echoes through the tunnel, magnifying even the smallest noises. The combination of darkness, echoing sound, and structural decay gives the impression that the Broadway tunnel is alive with a lingering consciousness, resonating with traces of its history. Ghostly figures are among the most frequently reported phenomena. Visitors describe vague, human-shaped apparitions appearing along the tracks, standing silently on platforms, or drifting through side corridors. Some seem to move with purpose, pacing or gesturing as though replaying moments from the tunnel's past, while others simply vanish into the shadows when approached. One urban explorer recounted pausing near an abandoned platform when he saw a figure standing near the tracks, watching silently. As he stepped closer, the figure dissolved into darkness, leaving behind only the faint smell of metal and dust. Others have reported multiple figures appearing simultaneously, drifting along different corridors or disappearing around corners, creating the impression that the tunnel preserves fragments of its former life, replaying them for those who wander too far into its depths. Phantom trains are another hallmark of the Broadway subway tunnel. Witnesses describe the sudden sound of engines and wheels clattering on rails, accompanied by the hiss of brakes and the subtle vibration of tracks underfoot. Yet when explorers search for a source, no train is visible, and no evidence of movement is found. Some report seeing the shadowy outline of a train emerging in the distance, illuminated briefly by reflections from the tunnel walls, only to vanish entirely as it approaches or passes. These phantom trains often coincide with sightings of ghostly figures or echoing footsteps, creating an eerie impression that the tunnel remains active in a spectral, parallel world, replaying its history for anyone daring enough to witness it. Echoes of cries and footsteps are also a constant feature of the tunnel's haunting. Visitors often hear faint, distant screams, arguments, or sobbing, sometimes overlapping with the sound of hurried footsteps along empty corridors. One explorer described pausing near a stairwell when a sudden, distinct set of footsteps approached from behind, only to vanish into silence as he turned. Others report hearing multiple sets of footsteps moving in different directions, creating the impression of unseen crowds navigating the tunnel long after the city above has gone quiet. These sounds, combined with ghostly figures and phantom trains, reinforce the tunnel's reputation as a place where time and memory intersect with the unexplained. Flickering lights and sudden chills add to the tunnel's unsettling atmosphere. Some explorers report seeing lights appear along walls or platforms without any electrical source, flickering on and off in patterns that seem deliberate. Cold drafts often accompany these phenomena, with sudden drops in temperature that feel almost tangible. One visitor recounted walking through a narrow corridor when an icy gust swept past him, seemingly brushing against his arm, as if an unseen presence had passed by. No ventilation system or natural cause could explain these sensations, lending them an otherworldly quality that continues to unsettle visitors. The architecture of the Broadway subway tunnel amplifies these phenomena. Cracked concrete, rusted rails, peeling paint, and standing water create a labyrinthine environment where shadows, reflections, and noises can deceive the eye and ear. Every corner, stairwell, and alcove has the potential to conceal a fleeting figure, an unexplained sound, or a sudden gust of cold air. Visitors frequently report that the tunnel seems to react to their presence, with lights flickering, shadows shifting, or phantom sounds intensifying as they move further into the abandoned corridors. The haunting of the Broadway subway tunnel is inseparable from its history. Ghostly figures, phantom trains, and echoing cries are not random occurrences. They are remnants of the countless commuters, workers, and incidents that occurred within its walls. The tunnel preserves fragments of the past, allowing visitors to sense the lingering presence of those long gone. Each apparition, every echo, and every chill serves as a reminder that the history of this urban space is not confined to memory alone. It remains embedded in the tunnel itself, waiting to reveal itself to the present. For those who enter the Broadway subway tunnel, the experience is unforgettable. Ghostly figures move silently along platforms and corridors. Phantom trains glide through empty tracks, and the echoes of cries and footsteps create a haunting soundtrack to the abandoned space. Cold drafts sweep unexpectedly through passageways. Flickering lights reveal shadows that vanish moments later, and every sound resonates with an unnerving clarity. The Broadway subway tunnel is more than a forgotten transit route. It is a living archive of memory, energy, and unexplained phenomena, ensuring that its haunting continues to captivate, frighten, and intrigue all who venture into its shadowed depths. Subway tunnels are meant to carry us safely beneath the city. But these 25 haunted tunnels remind us that some journeys never end. From shadowy figures darting along tracks to phantom trains moving silently through darkness, the ghosts of construction workers, passengers, and forgotten souls linger beneath the streets of America. Thank you for joining us on this descent into the haunted tunnels of the United States. Subscribe, like, and click the bell to continue exploring the places where history, tragedy, and the supernatural convergence, where the echoes of the past walk beneath our feet.